Let's call a meeting to order. Mr. Benton. Got the invocation, and Mr. Skinner's going to do the pledge.
Bow your heads, please. Lord, thank you for allowing us to have this day. Thank you for all your glory and all the things you provide us. Lord, please look after our county and all its citizens, particularly those in the western and southern portions that were hit by the storms the other week. Help them recover and overcome. Lord, thank you for all our public safety. Please be with them and guide them as you will us in doing your will and your glory. We pray, amen.
Flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Next item is your consent agenda for the afternoon. May I have the floor computer, please? This is your consent agenda for August 9, 2016. Item 1 is approval of board meeting minutes for June 28 and July 12, 2016. Number 2 is approval of contract renewal with Draper Aiden & Associates for solid waste engineering services. This is the first of 4 routine renewals. Approval of contract to Farmville Excavation Company for Patriot Park field lighting. Low bid, $397,300. Next is approval of a contract to Kelvick Construction Company and associate transfer of funds in the budget for Chancellor Road waterline extensions. Low bid, $384,869. Next is the appointment of Dondre Maiden to the Transportation Committee for a term that expires August 9, 2017 for the Salem District. Next is Transportation Committee Charter Amendment to an amendment to include appointment of a planning commissioner to the Transportation Committee. Number 7, acceptance of a grant award for FY17 Rescue Squad Assistant Funds for the Sheriff's Office. This is $9,433 with a 50% local match to be met by the Sheriff's Office budget. And that amount, Kathy, would you check that amount and we'll come back to that item if necessary. Number 8 is authorize advertisement of a public hearing for the Lake Anna Wake resolution. Public hearing to be scheduled for September 13th board meeting. Item 9 is Everett Estates street acceptance to the Virginia Secondary System of Public Roads. Item 10 is River Glen subdivision streets acceptance into the Virginia Secondary Road System. Number 11 is Spotswood Furnace Road street acceptance into the Virginia Secondary Road System. Number 12 is a request to accept the 2016-17 School Resource Officer Grant Award for Brock Road Elementary School, with the Sheriff's Office absorbing any additional costs out of budgeted funds. Item 13 is a resolution opposing the EPA's effort to institute numeric water quality-based effluent limitations or localized area pollution targets. Item 14 is a third quarter adjustment to the FY 2016 revenues, and that is your consent agenda. And that under item 7, the amount there is correct, $9,433 with a 50% local match.
Are there any items that board member would like to pull?
Mr. Chair, item number 8.
Number 8,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jakubowski?
Number 14.
Number 8, number 14,
Mr. Chair, 6 and 12.
6 and 12. Any more? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion on the remaining?
So moved.
Call the question.
Seven, yes.
So is it item number 6? Who would like to, any discussion on item number 6? Mr. Benton.
I was going to put that out too. I just had a question why we need a planning commissioner on there. I mean, that's going to take away from staff yet again, pull you to another committee.
Any other comments? Oh,
I can provide a little background. This is actually a staff recommendation based on observations that we made about the thoroughfare plan amendment that's the topic of the public hearing this evening. There are items that went through the Transportation Committee and went on to the board, timely items that the Planning Commission was not aware of. So the thought was if the Planning Commissioner serves on the Transportation Committee, there will be that linkage between those two bodies. More information exchange and knowledge, and keeping them better informed of what each other are doing. And it won't add anything more to staff.
Yeah, I was just concerned about how much it was going to.
Yeah, we have staff at both of those committees anyways already.
Okay.
any other comments?
One
Mr.
quick
Yakubowski.
comment. Thank you. This is for a planning commission seat, not a planning commissioner, so they can rotate, just in case.
My understanding, it would be a planning commissioner that would be, the planning commission would appoint one of their members to that seat. Is that correct?
Correct. So it'd probably be a year term, and then it could rotate.
So that's planning commission appointed, not board of supervisors appointed?
Yes, the idea is that it would be appointed by the chair of the planning commission based on interest of planning commissioners.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd recommend if we do approve this, that we have an alternate in there. Because if we all have some things that come up we don't know about, and I would recommend that they appoint an alternate as well as the primary.
So if,
Mr.
Mr. Yakubowski.
Chairman, yes, sir. My only point that I was bringing up is we do this on another committee I serve on with the EDA. It's the EDA seat, and then it's up to the EDA to figure out who they want to send to each meeting. So it's up to them, so we're not holding one person responsible for being there. It's like having 6 alternates, basically. Just a suggestion.
Any other comments? I mean, I guess if we are going to place a planning commission member on there, I would either make it the chairman of the planning commission fills the seat, because that rotates on an annual basis, or make it a chairman appointed position. Any comments?
I would still like an alternate there too, sir.
Well, I was suggesting the vice chair. The chairman of the planning commission is the appointed member, and the vice chair is the alternate. And they're elected amongst the planning commissioners, so they're voted in, it's not appointed. Any comments?
Motion to approve as adjusted by Mr. McLaughlin.
And just to clarify, that's with the chair being the member and vice chair being the alternate.
Correct. Call the question.
That's it.
7 yes.
Is it number 7?
8.
Number 8?
Next, yeah. That's the authorization to advertise public hearing for the Lake Anna Wake resolution.
Mrs. Bueller?
Yes, the reason I pulled this is for public information. Originally, this was to be a resolution going forward, and our legal department suggests that we have the public hearing to move this properly. So in that regard, I would like to call the Sheriff's Department forward to give us just a little briefing on what the resolution is for.
Yes, sir. I know the Public Safety Committee has encouraged this action for the safety of all on Lake Anna. It's a 200. This is, I think, on behalf of Mr. Sabula, who presented it. It's a 200-foot safety area between where wakeboarding would be done at Lake Anna, and it's from any shore area. And in the discussion, I think it goes toward the, Mr. Sabula, you can probably answer this better because you were involved in it more than I, but it goes toward the Game Commission for their resolution. Is that correct? All right, sir.
I'm sorry, I was off microphone. It's 200 foot from any shoreline, and that's for wake. It's created by
Any boat, yes, sir. That's
any
correct.
device.
Yes, sir.
So, just so the public knows, this will be, we go forward here, it'll be at the next board meeting. It will be a public hearing. Any questions?
So are we going to motion to request a public hearing?
Yes, this is to authorize the scheduling the public hearing for the meeting in September, the first meeting in September.
And I will move for that action.
Any discussion? All right, call the question.
Seven yes.
Mr. Chairman, next is item 12, which is requesting acceptance of the 2016-2017 School Resource Officer Grant Award for Brock Road Elementary.
I had some constituents that had some concerns about putting a SRO at an elementary school. I now understand that this is our second one in an elementary school, and this isn't because we have rowdy children. It's to protect our children. And Brock Road is out there kind of on its own, so it's more of a safety issue. So that's the question I had. I also just wanted to inform the public on that. And I've motioned to approve unless there's any other questions.
Any comments? All right, call the question.
Seven yes.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, is item 14, third quarter adjustments to the FY 2016 revenues.
Mr. Yakubowski.
Thank you. Yes, no, I had pulled that because I had some people that saw this come up somehow and were wondering what we are doing with this money. So it was more of an informative question asked for information about what the overage in this, in our budget in the third quarter is going to be used for. My understanding is that we basically sit on it until we close out the books.
Right, it may be used to cover our shortage in the fourth quarter, so
Right.
we'll see how the year closes out. But as of the end of the third quarter, we were within about $1.7 million, or 0.7% of projections for the year.
Okay. I just wanted to get that out. With no objection, I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay, call the question.
Seven yes.
And the consent agenda is complete, Mr. Chairman. Next is public presentations. Amy, has anyone signed up for public presentations?
Yes, sir. There are 2 citizens signed up to speak. The first citizen is Kenzie Mills, followed by Mike Gillis.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, we're catching the public presentation rules from the hall. My copy has wandered off, but we will read those in just a moment. Thank you. Yes, guidelines for public presentations. Public presentations are an opportunity for citizens to present matters you believe deserve the board's attention. These presentations are not part of a public hearing. Sign up to speak at each public hearing is separate. Public presentations are one-way comments from you to the Board of Supervisors. These are not a forum for dialogue or debate. To make a public presentation, please sign up on the provided sheet, print clearly. Come to the lectern when your name is called. Clearly state your name, address, and voting district for our record. Address your comments directly to the board. State whether you're speaking on your own behalf, in which case you'll have 3 minutes to speak, or speaking on behalf of a group, in which case you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Public presentations shall not be used to address matters subject to public hearings or to make political campaign speeches, private advertisements, or personal attacks. Written comments are always welcome, and the light on the podium will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds left and will turn red when you are expected to stop commenting. Amy, who is signed up first?
Kenzie Mills, followed by Mike Gillis.
Good evening. My name's Kenzie Mills, 9001 John Meyer Street, apartment 103, Spotsylvania 22553, Livingston District. Speaking for myself, was suggested by Mr. Ross after bringing some concerns because I recently moved from Salem Run. I lived there for 12 years, moved down here to the new complex on the other side of the elementary school here, and I felt it would give you guys a full idea that a county-wide issue has come up where a lot of people who are moving in, because you know the county is growing on a pretty rapid basis. There's a lot of complexes springing up, and a lot of people are moving in from out of state, out of other areas, and a lot of people are not registering their vehicles in the county or even in the state, for that matter, that they're living here. Recently, Fairfax County started cracking down on such a matter, and they've pulled nearly 2,300 people who have not registered their vehicles in-state, and they're avoiding the personal property tax, which affects us all, and they're not paying their fair share. If you happen to just go over to the complex over here, a couple blocks over, as a prime example, there are people who have been living there for more than a year who are still registered from, say, South Carolina, South Dakota, Minnesota, other states, and they're just not, they don't want to pay the property tax. They basically feel, as one gentleman put it to me, that he bought his car in Alaska. There's no reason he should have to move here and have to pay personal property tax on that vehicle. And I've addressed it to the Sheriff's Department. Didn't seem like they were going to be willing to do anything, and so I brought the concern to David Ross, and he decided that I should go ahead and bring it to the board's attention because it is a county-wide problem and it's growing. I've been here again for 12 years, and I've never seen so many vehicles registered out of state, and people just are not making that effort. They're doing it to rampantly avoid that personal property tax. So that's what I brought to you today. Thank you.
Mike Gillis.
Good evening. My name is Michael Gillis. I live at 2807 O'Connor Court, Fredericksburg, Virginia. It's in the Livingston District. I have to begin with an apology because I was erroneously informed that the issue that I was here to refute was on the agenda, and it is not. However, when I got here earlier, I provided some information in written form for the members of the board and other parties concerned, which explains the reason that I'm here. Basically, a quick and dirty is that there is an organization that wants to build a structure in a vacant lot which is adjacent to our subdivision, and the only ingress or egress to that property is through the subdivision. We're talking about 90 to 180 cars by their own count, which would include Sunday services, weekday services, funerals, wedding processions, and so on, going through the subdivision where we have children playing and so on and so forth. I yield my time right now because apparently it's not on the agenda. Thank you for hearing me.
There are no other citizens signed up to speak.
Is anyone that did not sign up wish to speak?
Mary Lou Collier, Mr. Skinner's district. A couple items. First off, on Route 3, there's 9 signs for one business, square signs on the side of the road. I don't know if there is an ordinance as to how many signs per business is allowed, but in my opinion, I think it's a nuisance. It's also interferes with attention, seeing all those signs. They also have flags. Some of them have multiple flags that can also block the vision. But I would like you to check into if there is an ordinance as to how many signs that can be put out by one business. And I mean, these are a couple feet apart, 9 of them up the road. 2, I mentioned last meeting and several meetings prior of a business that has broken glass big windows in their business at the Tidewater Market. Used to be Tidewater Market, and nothing's been done. I don't know, can somebody from the county ask the property owners to board that up? It's an eyesore. Something needs to be done, and it's got a for lease sign, but I don't think anyone would want to lease something if they see big holes, broken windows. Three, there was an article in the newspaper regarding the GMC plant by Mr. King and Ms. Williams regarding some very good points on the county should think twice, 3 times about not purchasing and doing repairs to the building. I would like to see some more information. Who else has visited the facility? Is this going to be a matter of public presentation, or is this going to be a decision behind closed doors? I don't think the county should be going into real estate business. I think they have enough business to handle for the county without having to go into real estate and also doing repairs for buildings. Thank you.
Sir?
Good afternoon. Tim Davis, 2110 Marengo Plantation Lane, Lees Hill District. I want to start off by thanking the supervisors who were at last month's FAMPO meeting and sort of leading the charge for the resolution against the Eastern Bypass option, which is the DRPT study underway for high-speed rail. I've spoken many times. I know you're all familiar with it. I had an opportunity to go to a town hall meeting today in Bowling Green where Congressman Rob Whitman was there, and he met with us. The people of all the counties, 3 counties were represented, and we spoke to him about our concerns. And he specifically mentioned that he himself has many concerns and said that really that he's spoken to DRPT representatives and he's gotten no answers from any of them either. And it pretty much seems like they are moving ahead with this environmental study and they are going to run it through no matter how much nobody really wants this and whether it's viable or not or ever going to be funded or not, which gets to my point of concern, which is, as I've stated before, if this survey completes and the bypass option is on there as a viable option, it will be incredibly, our property values, many people's property values will immediately suffer. There's talk of how in Hanover County, Mr. Whitman mentioned that realtors are already appraising properties based on the proposed routes that this option is going to take. That will start happening here as well. So we don't want to see DRPT come out and say that any of the bypass options are viable. So what we are seeking, speaking for my family, I guess, is we are seeking, like Caroline County did and like FAMPO did, we are seeking that the Board of Supervisors for Spotsylvania draft a resolution and vote on a resolution opposing the Eastern Bypass option and have that sent up to state representatives and hopefully to Aubrey Lane, who we have heard is really the voice that has to come in and try to get DRPT, because the feeling is DRPT is going to proceed, and he is really the only one who has any possibility to influence this. So that is what we're seeking, and I hope to see that on the upcoming agenda for the supervisors, at least a discussion, if not the resolution itself. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, seeing none, let's move on. Mr. Skinner?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to the gentleman from that just gave the presentation on the Pelham's Crossing. I'd like to let you know that I've been working with the people who are building the church and also the engineers. There are other ways that we're looking at doing this without going through Pelham's Crossing, okay? We've got a couple of options here, and I don't see a need to go through there either. So we're going to find a way that we can make this happen without hurting Pelham's Crossing. And I think we can work with VDOT and stuff of that nature to help this too. Okay? Thank you.
Now, just to point out, there was a draft resolution, it just didn't make the agenda.
Well, and
It is, okay.
because there were actually several different versions of it. Mr. Cole attended a regional meeting and has come away with a version that'll, for the board's consideration. Next up, I see Mr. Nelson here, and we have the VDOT report.
Good afternoon. I've got Andrew Stanford with me and Stephanie Lagarelli. They're both core development engineers who just started with the department on the program, kind of similar to the way I started, so trying to get them acclimated to some of the things we do at VDOT. Andrew will be leading the presentation here, and I'll be talking. So I guess in June, when I came to the board, we kind of went through this presentation format. I sent you all earlier today paper copy of the report, which has a whole lot more details than what I will go through as far as the highlights in this presentation. So as of now, we'll go ahead and start with the presentation. Andrew, can you advance? So for the Berkeley District, some of the updates are under the construction projects is we had a project planned on Fairview Road for the bridge. We've run into some delays for that project. I've communicated that with some of the concerned citizens in the area. We went out and did some tightening of the bridge deck on Monday, and we were hoping to have this project completed prior to school going back in session, but we haven't been able to get all the materials, so I'm waiting on another start date in which I'll coordinate with the schools and emergency services on when that road will have to be closed for the bridge rehab. Prior to that work happening, we're going to try to address some of the drainage concerns that the citizens have in the area by doing some ditching work to kind of mitigate some of the issues that have been going on out there.
Sean, has there been anything going forward on that to reduce the amount of heavy truck traffic on that road?
It's kind of really difficult to reduce it. We can't, the department doesn't enforce the truck traffic, so, and the weights of the trucks.
I understand. I believe a lot of that is due to the use of the road now as a
detour.
Detour.
Yes. I cover that in another section
okay.
when we talk about the Mount Olive Road project. Another update for construction, I know there's been some questions about the Holly Drive Rural Addition project in which we're going to be resurfacing that roadway and kind of building it up. The road is now in the state system for maintenance. It's Route 717. We will be putting up signs once we get them in. We're trying to get to that project this year, but we've got multiple projects in front of it, which is Grand Brooks, Haley's Mill, and Williams Lane. Our hopes is to try to get to it this year. If not, we'll prep the road and finish it in the spring of next year if we can't get to it. All right, next we'll move on to some of the preliminary engineering updates. The two projects I've got here is the Mud Tavern Road, which is the improvements west of I-95. That project was approved through Smart Scale, so we're looking at that project moving forward. I met with the Planning Commission on July 20th and sent the county some information regarding ways to, because there were some issues with the access management, or some options that we could go through regarding that. Now, to touch on your point about the Fairview Road project, as you alluded to, the trucks are going through now because of the detour on 658. We're actually getting ready to have a public hearing on that project on October 6th of this year. So the project is moving forward. The public hearing will be on the 6th of October at the Partlow Royalton Club from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we're still looking at an advertisement for that project in 2017. All right, now we'll go on to some of the inquiries that we had over the last 2 months. I did have one inquiry from you, and that was to review a damaged ditch line at the intersection of Arcadia and Marie Road. We did perform some handwork at that location to address some of the immediate concerns. We'll be working with some heavy equipment within the next month to rectify it fully. This district in which I have some updates for is the Chancellor District. There was a request for Riverbend High School traffic study to be sent to you, Mr. McLaughlin. That was sent on July 6th. There was also a request on an update on the paving work that's planned on Old Plank Road. We sent that on the 26th of July, and the contractors indicated that they tentatively plan to start in September.
Sean, real quick. Is that from to where on Old Plank?
That is from, which is on my last slide. It is actually from Catharpin to Route 3.
Going which way?
Both ways.
So it's the whole thing?
Yes.
So from Route 3 to Route 3?
Yes.
Harrison? Okay. Thanks.
No, from the westernmost section of Route 3 back to Catharpin is what's going to be resurfaced, yes.
So through the park?
Yes, through the park.
So what about the section from Catharpin back to Harrison?
We'll have to look at that for the future. That's not on the plan this year.
Okay. Thanks.
The next is Mr. Ross in the Courtland District. We have completed most of the issues and the things that were identified in the River Road Safety Study. The trees have been removed. We're working now to have all the rest of the signs installed out there. Next, we'll move on to the Lee Hill District with Mr. Skinner. There's an update on the Spotsylvania Avenue Mine Road intersection project. That project is kind of somewhat started now. It's kind of a soft start. They look to pick up some activity here in the next couple of weeks, and that project is slated to be completed by November 22nd of this year. There was an inquiry to review the signal operations at Route 1 in the ramp to I-95 northbound at exit 126. I think some of my staff met with Mr. Skinner out in the field, and I think we've kind of rectified that issue as of right now. All right. The next updates are for the Livingston District. We've got some construction updates for you, Mr. Benton, that the Grand Rooks Rural Rustic project is moving along pretty good right now. We've got most of the pipes replaced. We had an issue where one of the pipe ends came off, so we're back out there trying to rectify that now. We look to have the resurfacing of that road to take place in the next couple months. Williams Lane and Haley's Mill, once we finish Grand Brooks, we're going to move onto those two roads and try to start the drainage improvements down and have it resurfaced before the winter. For preliminary engineering, you and I talked kind of about Jones Powell Road a while ago. We're going to delay that project from starting this summer until next spring, try to have a public information meeting over the fall to let everybody know what we plan to do out there. So more information to come on that as we move forward. Now for some of the inquiries in the Livingston District. There was a request for us to review a concern along Brock at Arrowwood subdivision. We had looked at this some time ago in 2012 and installed signs to alert people of the intersection. As of right now, we don't see anything else we can potentially do out there, but if the county wanted to talk about initiating a project through the secondary 6-year plan or other means, we can have that discussion to try to help with some of the sight distance on that curve there. There was a request for us to review the intersection of Courthouse Road and Massey Road. We installed some advanced warning signs out there on July 21st.
Mr. Benton.
I've gotten some feedback on that, on those signs. Number one, I appreciate you. Well, I can't thank you enough for the quick action. But the only suggestions I have for on the eastbound, when you're going eastbound and you're hitting the Massey one, immediately behind that sign is the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Okay.
If that could be moved back to where that other sign is.
Gotcha.
And there was a question also that was raised by a couple of folks about how close it is to how close those signs are to Massey Road as far as allowing for any real
Advanced
slowdown.
Okay, we can look at stretching them out a little bit further.
That would be great. And
Okay.
that one speed limit sign, if it just could be moved to the opposite side, adjacent, across from the other slow down, the 45 and indication for the Massey Road westbound.
Okay. We will look into that.
All right.
All right. Along the same area, there was a request for us to review the pavement condition on Massey Road. We've looked at and gone out and made some temporary repairs and going to do additional temporary repairs before school starts. But the road ultimately needs to be resurfaced. So we're going to have to look at getting it on a plan to go in and do some heavy mechanized patching and resurface in the future. There was also a request for us to look at site distance issues at Seas Road. We went out and did some work in July, but we plan to go back to complete work on the week of August 18th with the appropriate equipment to try to clear that site distance out there. There was a request for us to review the drainage concerns along Lawyers Road between Lakewood Lane and Jones Powell Road. We have ditching scheduled for that area the week of August 15th. There was also a request to review drainage concerns at the intersection of Belmont Road and Daysbridge Road. We've had crews go out and open up that pipe, and they've made sure that the drainage issues is flowing through there now. There was a request for us to look at the pavement conditions of Robert Lee Drive. We do have this on a schedule to be patched. The contractor's currently in Caroline right now, making its way towards Spotsylvania, so this section of road will be patched.
Okay.
There was a request for us to review brush along the areas of Lawyers Road, and we've got crews scheduled to do that actually this week, if we can get some dry weather.
All right. I hate to tell you, but I've gotten a couple more since, actually one today from Mr. former Supervisor Waddy. 612 and 522, Jackie Taylor. He said the grass has apparently gotten up quite high, and he's just asking that we, if we can get that chopped down a little bit.
All right, will do.
And to do mine, you got to hold your breath when you go into the list. Lawyers Road in West Catharpin, same thing. If you're on Lawyers Road and you try to make a left, and I know this, I hadn't bothered you with it until somebody called, but it is, you got to be halfway out in the intersection to really see what's coming, and that puts you out with people coming.
All right, as you get them, let me know. That way I can get my guys out. You do have a large area out there, so.
Yes, I do. I'm finding that out. If you would just do driveways, I'd be in business. Folks can't get along, but
you can't do that one.
just give you heads up. I'm gonna be sending you an email on a dead tree on Brock Road.
Okay.
Apparently, he's had several other people come out to look at it. Comcast, Verizon, and they're declining. Although it's going to probably fall on their lines too, but he's pretty sure it's going to fall into the roadway. It's a dead tree, and they've, just to let you know, Comcast has been kind enough to market real good for you. So just a couple more things you got to do from those lists.
You send it, we'll review it. If it's in the right of way, we can take some action.
All righty, I appreciate it. And again, I can't thank you enough for what you've been doing out in Livingston. And I've been down Grand Brooks a number of times. I only got one fella that's complaining to me quite a bit. But other than that, I've heard nothing but good.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on that project. We're taking a new approach with the way we do the rural rustic. I usually have state forces go out and do a chip seal. We're actually going to do what we call full depth reclamation on that. So you're going to see this huge, gigantic looking garden tiller out there soon. It's going to pulverize the road and stabilize it with cement, and then they're going to surface treat it. So we're hoping that in the future, with other rural rustics, this is the way to go to make sure we have a long-lasting roadway.
Well, I've been impressed so far. It's a lot of good comments from the folks out there, and like I say, most of them waited 12, 15 years to get this done. It's been promised, and it's finally coming to fruition, and I can't thank you enough. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Now moving on to the Salem District, which is Dr. Trampy. We had a request to review the road failure, the drainage failure on Deerfield. That road was reopened to through traffic last Friday.
Will replacing that culvert do anything to mitigate the flooding for the houses along that creek?
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to mitigate the flooding. It's going to be able to accommodate the water coming through there. Now, we may have to look at where all that water is coming from to see if there's any other ways. But I mean, it is the low-lying area, and it is a creek that goes through there. So during heavy rains, you can anticipate some flooding. There was also a request for information regarding traffic calming, potentially in Salem Fields, and as I indicated, we'll work with the county on that request as it comes through. On the next slide, there are some roadway maintenance issues. These are the roads that we plan to resurface in Spotsylvania County this year. And then on the last slide, we are going to be continuing to clean up the debris from the storms that we had in July. So we have crews out in the county working to clean up some of that debris.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Skinner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Sean, a couple things I mentioned. Did I see the crew cleaning up underneath I-95, the underpass there? Is that the center? You clean up that too, as well as the sides?
Yeah, what we've got now is we've got this crew that we called a complaint crew, and they go out and do some of these little small things like that.
Oh, I just saw them for a quick thing. I saw them on the right side. I don't know. When they do that, do they clean up the center, the medium?
They try to, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. The other thing is, really, on I-95, you're coming northbound, you get off at exit 126. Mm-hmm. So you're joining Route 1 North. Can you please put a sign up once you're getting close to merge, that right lane turns only, because what happens is it gets backed up every Saturday, every Sunday, a lot of times. And what happens, people think they can make it quicker down Route 1 North when they get out. So we get a backup all the way probably to the merge, at least, if not further down towards the bridge.
Okay.
And that's because people are trying to, some of them get over, but if there's no sign there saying that right lane is right turn only, and they get all the way up to the very corner, and that's where they see it, and they're holding everybody else up because they're trying to get into the left lane to go straight.
You're talking going Route 1 northbound, like in front of the Steak and Shake, where that lane turns only go to 95 southbound. Is that what you're talking about?
No, sir. Here's what I'm doing. I'm coming off of 95. I've just crossed under Route 17 coming down. You take the right, you're going up the hill.
Okay.
You merge with I-95 past that, just about where the light is.
Okay.
Okay, you merge with, and what happens is there's no sign. There is an arrow on the ground, but if you're backed up, you don't see that arrow. You don't see that arrow at all, because they're backed up maybe even a quarter way down the ramp before we even merge. And so it's become a problem now. So I think the smart thing is if you could put a couple signs, right lane must turn right.
Okay.
On that one, I appreciate that. And then here's a question for you. I have a constituent in one of the Lees Hill North divisions. Okay, it has been taken over by the state, the roads. Okay, this particular one. And when it rains real heavy, the gravel on the side of the road is clogging the hole, and she's getting water all the way up. Is there something you can do for that, or is that, who has the responsibility to fix that?
If it's roadside drainage and it's affecting the shoulder and the right-of-way, that's our responsibility.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you have an address, then I can have staff.
I'll get with you and I'll get you the address.
Okay.
I just didn't know for sure to what extent you would come out and take a look at it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks, Sean.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Taylor, could we move up the distracted driver ordinance? Because we got the deputies and the Commonwealth's attorney sitting there.
Absolutely. That would be now.
Good afternoon. The Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Harris and myself have gotten together to propose a distracted driving ordinance, would be a local municipal ordinance. It is to take place of what, unfortunately, our sheriff's deputies have to essentially overcharge on many traffic accidents. Minor fender benders, the offender receives a reckless driving Class 1 misdemeanor. Of course, those people face up to a year in jail, up to a $2,500 fine, and 6 points on their license for a reckless driving ticket. The Sheriff's Department or state troopers do not have the power to charge what's called improper driving. The only people that can do that is the Commonwealth's attorney in court can amend down, or the court can. This ordinance would, one, for the citizens, the benefits would be to charge them appropriately to the level of their offense, a traffic infraction. The ordinance would be prepayable, meaning they can either mail in their payment or appear at the clerk's office and pay ahead of time, so they do not have to appear in court if they chose not to. Secondly, if they, of course, wanted to contest the traffic infraction, they most certainly could. They do not face up to a year in jail, they do not face a criminal history, and they don't face up to a $2,500 fine. Our municipal ordinance tops out at a maximum of a $100 fine. And lastly, it does not carry points on their license, such as the the reckless driving ticket does. The benefits to Spotsylvania is the deputies can do their job and charge the charge as appropriate to the level of the offense. With the charge being prepayable, the clerk's office will not have as many matters on their docket, so it lowers our court dockets here in the county in the time that citizens, witnesses, and offenders spend in court. Also, with the charge being prepayable, with less matters on the docket, the deputies do not have to appear in court as much, thus cutting back on their overtime pay for court appearances, as well as their time to come in on their days off to appear in court for infractions that can be prepaid. And lastly, just as an aside, that the matter is being handled by our Spotsylvania deputies and being charged by our Spotsylvania deputies. If it is a county ordinance, the fine infractions actually go to the county, and the money stays here locally. This is what's being requested. It's one, to benefit the citizens of Spotsylvania so they can actually receive a charge appropriate to the level of their offense, and to the deputies so they can also do their job correctly, because this sergeant here will tell you many times he doesn't want to charge that, but he's left with no option. The only other option was following too closely, and we had a ruling here recently by a judge because the car in front of the person that was ticketed had actually stopped. The judge ruled that the car was not following anybody. How could you follow a car that stopped? So in that rear end accident, following too closely, ticket was thrown out, which is the only other option the deputies have. So based upon that, once again, it's to benefit the citizens of the county with a charge appropriate to the offense, a charge that does not carry near the ramifications if they're found guilty of a simple traffic infraction. And it saves them and the county time and money, and the court's time and money as well. If you have any questions, most certainly the sergeant can speak to his experience dealing with these issues.
Mr. Trampy?
When you're talking about it's either or, you're talking about after an accident, right? So because
generally.
Otherwise you have the option to not pull the person over. But,
Oh, absolutely.
But you have to give a citation when there's been an accident. Looking at the ordinance, I guess I would say full time and attention is a little vague, but I would point it towards anything which takes an individual's eyes off the road is how what I would describe as distracted. But we can talk about that during the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Mr. Skinner?
This does not limit the option of the deputy to present a reckless driving ticket?
No, not at all. Obviously, if the deputies were to think the rise of the offense rose to the level of reckless driving and it was a serious accident, most certainly they're going to charge a criminal reckless driving offense.
The other thing, I think, texting and stuff of this nature is illegal, correct, while in a car?
Yes,
talking on the phone or dialing a number, is that the same as texting? Because
technically, the statute on texting is texting.
Okay. And so someone's on the phone. And I think I've seen a lot of people distracted just talking on the phone before. Can a deputy present a reckless driving ticket if they know that the person was on the phone talking at the time of the accident?
I think the deputy could probably find probable cause and a magistrate find probable cause in that situation for a reckless driving if their driving behavior because of their attention was so out of the ordinary, if they were going over the center line, going to oncoming traffic, going off the shoulder, things like that because of their behavior. Most certainly it could rise to that. But that kind of behavior would probably also be covered by this distracted driving ordinance as well if the deputies wanted to charge it that way. And just to add additionally, I will tell you that this is an ordinance that many jurisdictions have. City of Fredericksburg has almost might even be the exact same similar language as ours. I believe Stafford County has one as well. They do have local ordinances covering this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Ross?
Motion to approve.
For public hearing.
That's correct. Motion to approve the public hearing.
Advertise for a public hearing. Okay. Any questions? Call the question.
Seven yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Jakubowski?
Thank you. Without objection, I would ask that discussion item number 2 under board reports, where we're going to, myself and Mr. Skinner have asked to discuss smart scale. Can we move that up so we can have VDOT here to answer any questions that we might have, because they do have limited time?
Yeah, that's fine. Are you still going, how much, you're here, okay. Without objection, anybody? All right, let's do it.
Okay, thank you. Well,
is there a presentation, or what's the?
Well, there is no presentation from staff. This was a discussion item requested by Mr. Yakubowski and Mr. Skinner.
Okay. Mr. Yakubowski?
Thank you. Back in July, which seems like forever ago, though I do say these once-a-month board meetings, we should take a look at doing more of them. We had placed a bunch of items on the request for, they're calling it Smart Scale now, but I'll keep referring it to HB2 just for my own sanity.
Excuse me, Mr. Yakubowski, just,
yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt, but, so there is an attachment here dated 9 August. What is that? So this isn't new information, this is just, okay, same thing, just a new date on it. Okay.
And two of the changes that we, myself and Mr. Skinner had talked about, first of all, to understand that the next round of HB2 funding is not for 6 years. And so what this does is place items, if they get approved by the state, onto that list down the road. And some of these are fine. You know, it would be nice if all of them can be done tomorrow, but some of them, in my opinion, and I'll let Mr. Skinner speak for himself also, but I think he agrees, the widening of the I-95 ramp at 126 turning into a full turn lane down Route 1 and continuing to South Point Parkway is something that, in my opinion, needs to be done as soon as possible. And waiting 6 years beyond, because it's also, remember, we put it in September, CTB votes on it February, March, somewhere around there, and then funding, or I'm sorry, the state votes on it, and then CDB votes on it later. So you're looking at another year. So from right now, you're looking at a potential 6 to 7 year wait until we can get this done. These items were also on the 2014 bond referendum that we went out to the public, and they voted to allow us to do these projects. My suggestion would be to move those two projects off. They were two separate, even though they can be linked together. Take those two projects off the resolution and substitute them with two others. Those other two that Mr. Skinner and myself have talked about is, instead of just the intersection with 208 and Hood Drive, would be to do the entirety of Hood Drive. The intersection currently has CMAQ money on it for, I think, 2019. And so this would be putting it on there. And the other project would be the connection road between Spotsylvania Avenue and Germanna Boulevard, which is part of the supplemental documentation, or I'm sorry, planning document to help that area down there. Those are the two issues that we had brought up. And in addition to that, one of the overriding issues behind all of this is the J-ramp and how the J-ramp has been stalled, and focus has been taken off of that and now put onto the Harrison Road intersection. And that's why I had asked if VDOT could stay here, just because back in March, the county, or I'm sorry, VDOT had received a letter from the feds basically saying that the J-ramp is a no-go unless the other issues were addressed, and those issues were in the supplemental planning study that was done with multiple areas of improvement that were needed. And one of them is the I-95 ramp and the Route 1 expansion. So I had wanted to bring that up for discussion to see if the board would want to amend the resolution, because this is the last meeting that we have before it's due. And that would be to amend the resolution to take the I-95 project and the Route 1 project off, and to add the Harrison Road, or I'm sorry, not Harrison Road, Hood Drive in its entirety, and the connection road between the Capital One buildings and Germanna.
So can I get some clarification on smart scale? So we're going into our second round of smart scale, and the funding's not for 6 years?
Correct. The funding for those phases would be 2023, if I'm not, 22 and 23.
Are all of these projects flushed out enough to even be entered into the smart scale process?
The Transportation Committee has not seen those projects. The 8 items that you guys had before you on the resolution had been presented to the Transportation Committee last September. They were vetted through the Transportation Committee and voted on in March and April.
So I just want to make sure, because, you know, having gone through this first round of HB2 or smart scale, is that you had to hit certain wickets before you can even enter a project into the process?
To make it score highly enough so that we were...
Has the design work done? You understand they had at least preliminary... What was the level of effort that had to be done with a project before you can even submit it? And have these achieved that?
There had to be preliminary, not necessarily design, but we did have to have a scope of work. We had to have a plan. We had to have adopted. We had to have. There's many things that you have to make it score better. Comprehensive plan, making sure that it's in the thoroughfare plan, making sure that you have a clear estimate, a detailed estimate, making sure that it's addressing congestion mitigations, things to that nature. So yes, the 8 items that are on there have been vetted through the Transportation Committee, and they have had some of those measures
Well, but
done.
the 2 that we're considering adding, are they at the point where they can be added?
Not to my knowledge. I know that VDOT's ready to help assist and try to get engineering estimates done, but those would be vague estimates if I'm not misspeaking.
Yeah, and the only one that has been looked at for like operational, how it would work, would be the Germanna Park extension, what was in that planning study. For the Mine Road one, it would just be widening. There would have to be an estimate done, and we would have to gauge that project in the metrics to see how it would score well.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Skinner?
So you're saying that's out of the time frame. You can't do that now. You couldn't do that in order to get it in on time, for these 2 prior to the Hood Drive?
I'm not saying we couldn't do it.
Well, I think one of the points we're saying here is that we see the potential of Route 1 really in 6 years, 7 years down the road, not holding its capacity, okay? By adding this lane that we've talked about, that will go directly and dedicated to go Route 1 to South Point Parkway, will leave a lot of that, because there'll be it'll leave some of it, won't do all of it. But certainly a fix for right now, temporary, until we can get a better design there. And we don't think we should wait for 7 years, 6 to 7 years to get this done, okay? So if you can get us the information, if you can do this, is what we're asking, and we're not pressuring you. I'm just saying, can you do this to where we could substitute Hood Drive and the connection from Capital One up to Germanna Drive in the time period that you have left?
Just for clarification, to do them right now is still going to take 4 years for design, PE, construction. So even if we had the funds to do it and start today, this minute, you're still not going to have it today. So we're going to really push that project up. I want to make it clear that it's not going to be done today. So if we use our funds and we have it ready to go right now at this moment with county funds, we're still looking at 4 years for construction, and that's design, PE, environmental, right away, design forces with VDOT. VDOT would have to be on board to do those. So we'd really not be pushing it up 6 years. We'd only be pushing it up maybe 2 years. And at this point, if we qualify for smart scale funding, it would come at no cost to any of our funds.
Are we talking the Hood Drive and the?
I'm talking the Route 1 improvements that you said taking that
No, wait,
off of there.
we've discussed this before, and so what you're telling, you're only pushing up 2 years. This money does not become available until 2022. For this project that we're looking at, that we discussed, that is the ramp coming down of 126 going to South Point Parkway.
Correct.
Okay, what we're trying to tell you is that that's way too much time for us to let this highway, this Route 1, go unattended without some type of fix. Okay, so I guess if you're telling me if you can't get me a Hood Drive estimate, or you can't do within the time frame to substitute these two projects on the ramp, and, you know, we broke it up into two projects, although we can make it one project if it's done other than through Smart Scale. You know what I'm saying?
We can do it anyway. I mean, breaking it up into two separate projects was going to score better. That's why. We broke it up into two separate sections.
Here's
so
the thing
that it would
is,
score better.
if we break it up into two, it's going to score better. I don't really want it to score better because we can't wait until 2022 to put this in there. So what we'd like to do is we're substituting, what we're asking the board here is that we would like to take this off of the Smart Scale. These two projects, these two ones that you broke up, okay? And we'd like to take that off, and if we could, substitute it for two other projects. We have talked about this before. It would have been Hood Drive, and it was the connection from Capital One buildings over to Jemana Drive.
Yeah, that has been talked about. It was discussed at the Transportation Committee. It was voted that the 8 projects that are before you on the resolution, that was what was voted on. So, I mean, it was talked about, yes. Mr. Yakubowski was there, it was discussed, and that's why it wasn't brought forward, because the Transportation Committee voted on the 8 projects that were before.
Right, and we passed a resolution on those 8 projects.
Correct.
Okay, now we thought about this, and I'm not saying it hasn't changed, but we thought, if nothing more than, if the worst case is, take those 2 projects off of the resolution.
Not take it back to, we don't have time to take it back to the Transportation Committee. You're just wanting to do that now.
Well, I'm just asking the board. What we're trying to do is this. If we keep it on the resolution, and if it is accepted and we get funding for it, we can't do a doggone thing until 2022 for that. Is that correct? Because that's where the funding is going to come from.
Correct.
Okay. So we sit here for 6 to 7 years doing nothing because now we
wouldn't sit here doing nothing. We'd still have design. We'd still have engineer. We'd know that it would still be going through that process if it was, you know, if it was approved. But we wouldn't have funding to start that complete project until all those monies were there. If we started right now today, even doing the engineering, it would take us approximately 4 years for the completion of that because no work has been done.
Okay, that's fine.
So it doesn't take us back 6 years. It only brings us up forward 2.
Okay, so
So
now
we're talking about 2 years and.
we can. Okay, what I'm trying to say is this: in our last election, we had a bond. It was the last election, the election before. Mr. Yakubowski, which one was the bond referendum set for? 14. 2014, we had a bond referendum that gave us funding on exit to improve exit 126.
Correct.
Okay, so we know we have funding out there already for that. It's been approved by the citizens. Okay, and what I'm saying is, even waiting 2 years is not smart if I can save 2 years. I mean, I understand what engineering takes and stuff of this nature. Okay, this is not as difficult of a project. We're just adding a lane, basically, coming down. And I know there's some things that we have to talk to right away and stuff of that nature. But we have discussed this. This is not a real major problem or design that we have to do here. And I don't want to put myself into a position to where I have to wait until funding becomes available to fix Route 1 when I have the capability of doing it today.
Mr. Skinner, if I might, there was a statement that was made that I need clarification on. If we don't get funding for 6 years, how can we do all the preliminary engineering and everything until that funding is there?
We have some design work that's not design work, but some preliminary work that's already down there that we've done for the whole interchange when we did the bond referendum. We know the drainage issues down there. We know there's going to be culverts. There's going to be environmental issues. We can't actually start all of those phases, but once it's approved and those funding comes available, it's still, the point I was trying to make is that even if we were designing it right now, it would take us 4 years.
And to kind of clarify too, I think the funding available for this round of Smart Scale is for 22 is competing for the outer year.
Sean,
funds.
could you speak into that?
Yeah.
I had a call that some constituents called in and said they can't hear a word we're saying.
The funds for this round of Smart Scale are looking at the outer years, which is like 22 or 23. That's what these projects are competing for, and it's a smaller pot of funds.
Yes.
To kind of answer your question, there are some things that can be done up front as far as maybe looking at the scope of the project, identifying some of the risks, but the project would be funded in the outer years even if it got the funding. So we would not be able to start the phase until 22, 23, or wherever the funds were at.
So that is even more, what I'm trying to say is that puts us more in jeopardy than if we take the funds from the bond referendum and use it for this project here. And all I'm saying is take it off, let us take it off our list that we're going to do the Smart Scale. We wanted to substitute two of them instead of these two, put the Hood Drive and the Connect. Now, if we can't do that, if we cannot capable of doing that by the time that and get it ready for submission, I understand that. That's perfectly fine. But I don't want to put myself in the position where I keep it on and then I'm bound by that money that to do it with that project. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to wait until 22 if I get approved. And again, we know that everything that we heard is, hey, put more in there because we had money left over last year from HB2 bill. So everybody's going to put more in there. There's going to be less money and there's less chance of us getting approved. I believe. That's my opinion, my personal opinion. I just want to make sure that we can use the money that we have that we got approved by the citizens on transportation to improve exit 126. And I believe that that would be improved by doing this project. If you all have your program on the Smart Scale presentation that's in the computer, you'll know what we're talking about. And Mr. Yakubowski, I mean, is there anything that we can do by saying, just take us off, amend it and take them off? Take this one off, these two projects?
Well, obviously, it's up to the board. I would, humbly request that the 126 and the Route 1 improvements be taken off, and whether or not the other two are put on, that's up in the air. That's fine. But what this really goes to, and is really, I was getting questions from constituents about Harrison Road is now HB2 funding priorities for the county. And the question that they had was, well, what about the J-ramp? What has happened to all that money that we approved in 14 to improve that intersection down there? It seems like everything was now refocused. There's now a new IJR up at the Harrison Road and 95 intersection, which I would like to let my fellow board members know that was money, that's bond money. That was bond money that was laid out and is perfectly all right to do, but it was laid out to do a corridor study of Route 1 and 208, and that money was moved out of there to now refocus on a Harrison Road interchange. And so a lot of this discussion that I had wanted to bring this up with is it seems like we're losing our focus on what our priority is. It was the J-ramp, super ramp improvements to 126. And if you look at now our latest ask to the state of what we want to do, we have now shifted focus up to Harrison Road. And what is happening with the J-ramp? What is happening with the intersection improvements there? And I know that you say it's only gaining us 2 years. Well, if you start, and this is just me, if you start your funding in 6 years, that's when you start your engineering and everything else that you do. And if that takes 4 years, that's actually 10 years from now. So if we were to start that now, any amount of time that we get a jump on these improvements that are needed, especially because we have all of the housing that's coming in Massaponax, it's not going to get any better. So what my discussion with Mr. Skinner was how can we move that forward? How can we get those things taken care of? And then the secondary discussion that I would like to have with the board too is a priority of whether it's now Harrison Road and a new interchange with 95 there, or if we're still with the J-ramp, because I know that there is issues with the J-ramp. So, but to just get back to what this is all about is to pull those two off of the resolution, to supplement the other two on there, and to present that to the board as a new resolution that we put in for HB2 funding, which, by the way, I think you had stated was about a fifth of the funding that it was last time.
Could be.
Roughly.
We haven't been told quite yet what the amount of funding was. I've heard half. So I don't know. I have
Well,
not heard.
it's not going to be as much as it
No,
was.
it will not.
Okay.
So, Mr. Trampy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If a project is approved under HB2, does that preclude the county from moving forward on its own with engineering or whatever, using bond proceeds? Are we prohibited from going forward on our own?
No, I would think that if that was the case, you would want to structure your application to show that you only want smart scale funding for the construction phase versus preliminary engineering and right-of-way. And I just kind of want to make clarification. We keep talking about the J-ramp, it's gone, but this is the alternative to the J-ramp. It does the same thing, it's just at a different location.
And also the Route 1 improvements are alternative 3 of the whole J-ramp study that was done, that was part of that study, which was also vetted through the Transportation Committee.
So before Mr. Ross answers his question, I would say it would be nice if we had all that documentation in front of us, a presentation or some storyboards or something, we could actually know what's going on. This is just unprofessional. Mr. Ross?
That was actually going to be my second point. So you just said the Hood Drive and Capital One connector were the alternative to the J-ramp?
No, the Route 1 improvements, the
Right,
126 exit.
So my comments are more of, I know Hood Drive and the Capital One connector are important things, and they need to be done, but I don't see how they're drawn into our bond money. We brought up the bond referendum, and that's something that maybe I'd like to see, and again, we don't have it, it's a last-minute decision, how those would support Massaponax area as compared to what we have moved towards, was the Harrison Road interchange, which could relieve 126 and Route 3, 130. So, and then the other comment I do have is that, this is a last-minute decision, and I'm not comfortable making it underneath this pressure. It hasn't been vetted through the Transportation Committee or the citizens either. So.
Mr. Chair, please.
Mr. Skinner.
Okay, first of all, there's no bond money set aside for the connection of Germanna Road or for Hood Drive. That was not part of the bond referendum. So I don't know who said that, but that was never what we asked for. What we're asking for is to take this, the one that's on there now, the 2 phases of the 126 ramp leading on to South Point Boulevard off the resolution. That's what we're asking for. We're not asking for any bond resolution whatsoever. Okay? We're not doing that. All we're saying is please allow us, to take these 2 issues off the resolution. Okay? When we were talking to VDOT, we made the thing that maybe we should ask to replace them. And I agree with what you're saying. If you don't have all this information, that's fine. That's no problem. Because we're not going to ask for that Hood Drive and the Germanna thing. That's fine. We can do that at a later date. But we do not want to go forward with this on the resolution because, Mr. Trampy, even if we put some of our money in there, whatever money we do get from this isn't going to come to us until 2022. We can do all the design. We can do everything up front. Okay, we get it all done and we sit and we wait for 4 years until we can then get the rest of the money from HB2 bill. What we're asking for, forget about all the other things we said. We just want this taken off of the smart scale resolution because we think it's going to hamper Route 1. We can't fix Route 1 in a timely manner if we keep it on and we do get selected for it, no matter what we pay for out of the bond referendum money. And bond referendum money was only for exit 126. So that's all that Mr. Yakubowski and I are saying, please allow us to take these two things off the resolution. We feel, as the supervisors in that area, that's not the best way to handle our problem on Route 1.
And the last thing I'll bring up here is that this is frustrating to me, is that we've gone through a very deliberate process through the Planning Commission, through the Board of Supervisors. There was public comment opportunity, and here in the last minute, without any backup information other than, I don't disagree with what you may want to do, but there is no information here provided us to do any kind of evaluation to make that, see if this makes sense. So I can't support pulling this off on the last minute, when again, so it competes. Maybe it gets funded, maybe it doesn't. If it gets funded, that's a good thing. The bond money can go somewhere else.
No, it does. It's not a good thing, Mr. Chairman. It's not a good thing if it gets funded. That's what you don't understand.
Well, if it's funded by the state, those funds come throughout the state taxpayer money.
Sure.
If we fund this internally, it's going to come solely from the bond money and the taxpayers of Spotsylvania.
Well, that's why we went with a bond referendum.
That's
to
right.
allow the citizens to tell us if we could do this or not.
So
and they said, yes, we could, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Skinner, I don't want to argue about it. I made my point. So are there any comments or questions on this?
Yeah, I have a comment. And the comment is that we're not asking you to add anything. We're asking you to take it off of it. Okay. Because we think that this is a detriment to our localities here on Route 1.
Okay, then at this point, make the motion.
Okay, I will. I'll make a motion that we take the two projects, if you can be specific, if you want to tell me exactly what they are. Here.
Two projects that you're asking to take off would be the I-95 exit 126 off-ramp turn lanes, Route 1 South improvements, and the second one would be the Route 1 southbound lanes to South Point Parkway, which was alternative 3 of the J ramp.
Yeah, thank you. Now, my motion is take them off the resolution that we forward as smart scale this year.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a comment,
Mr.
please.
Yakubowski.
Thank you. First of all, this was summed up nicely by Mr. Skinner to simply remove those two projects. Not having the documentation for the other two projects, I understand that. Those are readily available. They were in the planning documentation for the J-ramp, for the most recent one that was done. But I sit here and you know, I marvel a little bit because this entire board, minus me, actually used bond referendum money for an IJR study at Harrison Road. So if there's some consternation, some hesitation to use those bond monies to do something other than what was listed in the bond referendum, well, that's already been broken down. Number two, we're simply saying that these improvements are needed years ago. And by putting them into this project, even if they get funded, that's another year. We won't know for another year, even if they get funded. Then after that, the funding doesn't come to 22 or 23. So that's 6 to 7 more years waiting for a project that was in a bond referendum that our citizens said that, yes, go ahead and do this. We have all identified as something that is absolutely necessary in that area. 6 to 7 years from now, the traffic down there will be even more horrendous, with even more houses coming online. And so we're simply asking, as the supervisors that are down there, to have those removed so that we can actually use bond referendum money to pay for those projects and get them accomplished quicker.
Mr. Trampy.
Mr. Chairman, these are one in each of your districts, Mr. Yakubowski, Mr. Skinner? Or?
It's actually all my district.
It's his district, but it affects mine. We
Yeah,
share
you're across the
Route 1.
street.
Sure, it affects.
I'm on one
probably
side.
affects everyone.
The lane's going to be on his side.
Thank you.
Mr. Benton.
Not to prolong all this stuff. First, I apologize to y'all for getting put in the middle of this rate. I don't know if any of this was discussed ahead of time before you, but if not, I'm sorry. You know, we have these committees and all this stuff that these things go through, and they've chosen what we have in this. You know, you talk about waiting. My folks out in Livingston have been waiting 14 years for some of our roads just to get paved. You know, I'm sorry. You know, if folks got to wait 6 years, it's 6 years, 10 years. My folks have waited. You know, we've been approving all this development over and over and over and over again, and it was kind of obvious what was going to happen to our roads. So I will not support this, just to let you know beforehand. And again, I apologize y'all get put in the middle of this mess.
Any other comments?
Yes, actually, this was discussed with VDOT. So, at least for me, we had a discussion about all of this. And as far as the paved roads, Mr. Benton, in 2005, there was a big bond referendum that was done, and there were all the unpaved roads were thrown into that, and a lot were actually done. So, well, if they weren't all accomplished, well, then that was up to the supervisor down there to actually fight for those. And that's all I'm trying to do, is to fight for my district and for that intersection and that interchange. It's the only one I would say that I can see on 95 where they actually have a sign up saying, watch for stopped vehicles. And there is going to be an accident there at some time. So waiting 6 years, it's easy to say, sure, sit there, no big deal. But, you know, at some point, we need to pull the trigger on this. The voters approved it in 2014. I don't remember there being any dirt roads on that bond referendum. But what was on that bond referendum was exit 126. And we're simply asking to pull that so that the county can fund it and get it moving quickly. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Sabula.
Yeah, as an adjacent district, south of this, this certainly affects the transportation of my people to and from. And if we can move this forward quicker, I definitely have to support this. So I'm in favor of removing 3 and 4 from the resolution.
Any other comments? So the motion is to remove what?
The motion is to remove
Paragraphs 3 and 4 in the resolution previously adopted by the board.
Okay. Any other comment? Call the question.
4 yes, with Mr. Ross, Mr. McLaughlin, and Mr. Benton voting no.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we need to move into closed session in order to be back for public hearings at 6:30. I'd like to note for the public's interest that live streaming at this point is available on regionalwebtv.com, but that Comcast is having technical difficulties on their end, so that some of our audience that can't hear due to Comcast issues, not issues here. Closed session.
This will be your closed session resolution. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desires to adjourn into closed meeting for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, specifically the position of county attorney, and whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desires to join into closed meeting for discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities and community, specifically relating to a museum business and a manufacturing business, and whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desires to join into closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically legal advice regarding contractual claims and a claim made by Henderson Construction Company. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code annotated section 2.2, 3711A1, A5, and A7, such decisions may occur in closed meeting. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters.
We have a motion? Call the question.
Seven yes.
Return to open meeting resolution. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this day pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors hereby returns to open meeting and certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion to convene into closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Benton. Aye. Mr. Trampy.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Spula.
Aye.
Mr. Yakubowski.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Let's go into a recess until 6:30.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is, again, public presentation for the 6:30 time slot. Amy, has anyone signed up for public presentation?
No, sir.
Has anybody that did not sign up like to speak? Well, please come up to the podium. I thought the Boy Scout was going to come up and speak. All right, good.
You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and identify your address and voting district for our record.
I'm Chase Santmeyer, and I'm from Fox Point, and my troop is 179. We're from Fredericksburg, Virginia. And we've been camping a lot. It's really fun. No.
All right. Well, keeping it short. I like that. Everybody remember that? Keep it short. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Was there someone else that'd like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Vicki Northridge. I live in Lee's Park at 9903 Box Oak Court. And some of my neighbors and I are here tonight to speak to the issue of the proposed amendment to the existing noise ordinance that you all are considering that would allow the expansion of...
Ma'am, that is the subject of a public hearing later this evening. And
That's
have
not what
you
we're talking
signed up
about
to
now?
speak? No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, then you know what? I'll speak then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else not speaking on a topic of public hearing like to speak? Okay, seeing none? Taylor?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. That takes us to CPA 16-0001, the public hearing on the comprehensive plan, thoroughfare plan update. And here is our planning staff to introduce the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The item before you this evening is an update to the thoroughfare plan, which is a part of the comprehensive plan. It is Chapter 3. The comprehensive plan as a whole was updated in November of 2013, and there have been no substantive changes to the thoroughfare plan since then. So the items before you reflect changes to proposed projects, new studies that have occurred since adoption of the plan. There are a number of items in here, and the Planning Commission had an overall recommendation of approval, but they did have different recommendations for 2 of the items. So what I'm going to do as I go through this is inform you of the Planning Commission's recommendation on each of the individual pieces. The first item relates to Exit 126. The proposal is to eliminate the Jackson Gateway interchange, which was also known as Exit 123. This was originally proposed in the vicinity of this area here between Jackson Village and Alexander's Crossing rezonings that were recently approved. And replacing it with the I-95 Exit 126 study area, which includes such items as the J-ramp, the super ramp, a number of changes to Route 1, extension of Market Street, changes to Route 208, as well as South Point Parkway. Also incorporating a study area along I-95. And this is shown in gray here. There are a number of items that are being considered between the Fredericksburg City line on down to Massaponax Church Road. So in order to capture all those different studies and ideas that are currently being discussed, we've included this study area, and what it captures in the description is everything from additional interchanges, perhaps at Harrison Road, perhaps at Courthouse Road, and perhaps south of exit 126, collector distributor lanes. So this area is currently in flux and under study, so until there's a final decision on how to move forward with the corridor, it's simply shown as a study area. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this portion of it. I'll also note that shown on here are this symbol here, the cross symbol. These indicate a number of intersection projects, some of which are included in your Smart Scale project list, and having these identified in the comprehensive plan aids in our application ranking higher. Updates to Route 3. The proposal is to eliminate the 6-lane improvement of Route 3 that is proposed from just west of Andorra Drive to the Orange County line. This is a problematic improvement for two reasons. Number one would be the cost. The estimate in 2013 was at $85 million. And there are also a lot of constraints within the area, particularly with the National Park Service lands. So the Route 3 Arterial Management Plan was a study that was headed by VDOT. There were several community meetings, reports to the Transportation Committee and the Planning Commission on this study. And what it does is look at how to utilize our existing resources as best we can to improve traffic flow and safety along the stretch of Route 3. So there is a small area of Route 3 that would still need to be improved to a 6-lane. But beyond that, it's looking at crossover management, closing some crossovers, improving other crossovers with appropriate turn lanes, signalizing some intersections. And this area is not an area that's slated for high growth as we head out towards Orange County. So the thought is that this plan would be implemented over time as needed due to development. So I note here that it would be triggered by development. The plan actually in its draft form, we're still working on it, but in its draft form it was part of the Old Country Store special use case that went through the process, and they actually are implementing one of the recommendations that came out of this to close one of the crossovers and improve another one so that there are safe turning movements there. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this item. The next item is Spotsylvania Parkway, and this is the concept to extend Spotsylvania Parkway to Gordon Road. It's shown here in the red dashed line. There is no alignment, but there is the idea of connecting those 2 points. As a result of this, we would eliminate the 4-lane widening of Smith Station Road between Courthouse and Gordon Road. Dan Cole from our office used our traffic model to look at the year 2030 and projected that Smith Station Road at that point in time along the segment that's on either side of Courthouse Road would function at the E to an F level of service. Spotsylvania Parkway extension would take traffic off of that roadway and allow the roadway to function in its current configuration or with the improvements that are currently proposed to it or underway at a C to D level of service. So it replaces the need to 4-lane Smith Station Road. And especially in the area between Courthouse Road and Gordon Road, there are a number of probably full takes that would be a result of a 4-lane road through that section. The Planning Commission had some concerns about this because it would be a new road, and so they asked that staff hold an informational meeting. This was held on June 27th. We sent 235 letters to property owners within this very broad study area here, and adjacent to it particularly through Bloomsbury and Smith Station Road on up to Gordon in this area, as well as to some of the properties down in this area. So about 30 people attended the meeting. They provided 11 comments, which are included in your packet. Some of the comments related to if a road were to go through there, looking at providing good buffers between the existing residential and the new road. There was some concern expressed about the new road facilitating future development in the area or being the impetus for development of the area. And I think maybe one or two people even commented that the road should be pushed further out to the west to allow for additional development to occur over time. We did post this information to the web and provided this to the Planning Commission as well. And the idea with this road is, since we do have a large open area through this swath, that we would try to minimize impacts to existing residential uses. We're just staying to the west of the development and to the east of the river. So the Planning Commission ultimately was still concerned that it was summertime and that perhaps with summer vacations people were just not able to participate in the public process. At the Planning Commission level, we had a public hearing that was continued over 2 meetings, a month and a half apart, and then we also had this informational meeting. They recommend to the Board of Supervisors that this project be peeled off of this comprehensive plan amendment and turned into its own amendment that would proceed fresh through the process come the fall. The final item is to Route 606, and this is to incorporate the Route 606 corridor study by reference. This is a study that, again, is an access management study looking at Mud Tavern Road between I-95 and Route 1. The Board of Supervisors did endorse this plan on May 12th, 2015 as a result of recommendation by the Transportation Committee. Last year, the county applied for House Bill 2 or Smart Scale funding, and it was received. There is a VDOT project that's currently underway. Last month, they sent out letters to the property owners to inform them of surveys that were beginning. So it is proceeding through their process, and there will be VDOT public hearings as they progress through design. The public hearings will occur in the future, and the Planning Commission was concerned about impacts to properties, and in particular, the inability for some people or some businesses to have people turn left into their business because of the divided nature of the road. So the Planning Commission recommended that the board take no action on this item. I will note that if the board does not take action on this item, that the VDOT project is underway and it will proceed. It simply means that this study will not be incorporated into the comprehensive plan as a reference material. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the amendments to the thoroughfare plan. As I noted, the public hearings for the Planning Commission occurred June 1st and July 20th. And I've got there a summary of the recommendation that I walked through with each of the different components of the thoroughfare plan update. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Skinner.
Wanda, you talked about, could you go back a slide and show us the latest one? Yeah, that one, thank you. There is some concern for people on the McDonald's side. I see that there is a left-hand turn into the Dan Bell Lane, I guess it's called.
Yes.
So if we as a board want to actually, if we don't say anything to VDOT, they're going to try to build it this way. The question I have is, can we modify this through VDOT to where we have more than just one of those entrances, because we have McDonald's and we have the newest hotel there along with a Taco Bell. And so is there a way, and if there is a way, what way would we as a board go about getting that modified to where we have an island, very simple, not an island, but an entrance way to turn left into those businesses there?
Similar to here.
But yeah, very similar to that, exactly right.
The Planning Commission asked that Sean Nelson be present for their second public hearing on this item. And how he responded to that question was that this is the first year of the House Bill 2 or Smart Scale funding process. And the projects were ranked according to a very particular description, and this project ranked highly because of the concept that was presented to them. So we don't know at this point what a change to the concept would do. It might affect our ranking and our funding. One thing he did suggest was that you can faintly see the dashed lines here that show a parallel road network. One suggestion that VDOT has made is that the county could move forward with a project that would implement this connection, these connections through here, and that would allow people to travel safely to the connection points and not modify the proposal for Route 606. That said, this is not the final design. This is the concept. So I don't want to say that it's going to be exactly like this. The engineering needs to occur, and there may be some modifications from this, but there won't be modifications that are that affect the intent of the project, and that is to have a limited left turn movements.
Okay, but it is my understanding that you say funding's been received through the HB2. So when you said might affect our rating or how we, I mean, it's there. It's already been selected based on what it is. Are you saying that if we modify this a little bit, they could take that money back?
I believe that's what he was saying, yes.
Do we know of any projects that have been modified and
no
had money's
projects.
been taken back?
Yeah, that's the problem, is that we'd probably be one of the first localities to try to attempt that, since this was the first year of House Bill 2 funding. So we're very early in that process, and we'd, I guess, be the guinea pigs.
One from myself I'd like, and I'm sure I think the other members on this board might like to know or keep informed of exactly what modifications we could do without being in jeopardy of losing the money. Okay? And I think that's really important because, yes, this is a good plan and everything, but once again, we know we're hurting some of our businesses here, and our job is to make business grow here. And I see the alternatives and the roads and stuff like that. Would that be strictly, again, paid by the county to put those roads in there to serve those businesses?
Correct. It's too late to incorporate that into the House Bill 2 project itself, so it could be something that the county moves forward as a revenue sharing project, perhaps.
So the last question is, we've received the money, and when does this money become available for us to start doing this?
Correct. The House Bill, the current funding, they were started on 2-year, 2018.
Well, which one is it? 2018,
2018. I'm trying to
2020?
count. It was 2 years, 1 year, 2 years. I believe it's 2020. Next round's 2023, 24.
So
it's 2020.
So with House Bill 2 funding, the county did put up money as part of this project. The county put up a share of funds. The House Bill 2 funds will complete the projects. We'll have a 100% complete project. But the House Bill 2 funds will come in towards the back end of the project cycle.
When can we expect this project to be then started?
I believe the public hearings are tentatively scheduled for spring of 2017. So it's probably about a 2-year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Ross?
So back to the 123 interchange, what's the benefit of taking that off? I mean, we're not, I know that we spent a lot of money on the Jackson Gateway interchange, which is what this is, and I know that it's now not a priority that it was, but why would we want to take this off as a possibility for the future?
We could leave it in. That would mean that we would have the Jackson Gateway interchange study. We would also have the Exit 126 interchange study and the planning study. We would have all the resources in there, and we'd have all the possibilities available to us. So there's not a problem with keeping it in there, except for the fact then, at some point, we need to hone in on how are we moving forward.
I think we can do that as time goes along.
Yes.
I mean, I'd hate to make that decision now. We kind of already have, but by taking it out, that would mean we'd have to put it back in.
True.
And I don't see a need to take it out.
Yeah, so this could proceed. If the board wanted to keep in the Jackson Gateway study, you could just proceed with a recommendation to leave that in, and we wouldn't be required to go through a new public hearing process or anything like that. We
Okay.
simply would not be removing it from the plan.
Gotcha. And the study area?
Yes.
Could you pull that up on the slide? I'm just curious why we stopped that study area, especially if we're considering collector-distributor lanes as part of that, south of Route 3 instead of taking it all the way up to Route 3.
Yes. No, he's not. He's talking about Route 3. Yeah, the graphic, let me see.
Yeah, you even said it was up to the city line.
To the city line.
And really it should go, in my mind, all the way up to Route 3.
To Route 3, yes, because we do have basically half of the interstate there in the county. So that's a good point.
Okay.
Very valid point.
And then, again, going back to the 3 lanes out to Orange County from Andorra, what's the harm in leaving that in? Because I tell you, there are some supervisors that live out that way. There's a lot of traffic flowing in right now on the 2 lanes that come from Orange County. A lot of commuters from Orange County come through here either going north or to Spotsylvania County. What's the benefit of taking that out instead of leaving it in? And it looks like we're replacing it with something that might not happen. It's triggered by development.
Yes, it is triggered by development. The only harm in leaving it in is just that there may be an expectation that it will occur, and businesses that are moving into that area or residents moving into that area may have an expectation that that is going to end up being a 6-lane roadway. But again, none of these projects actually move forward beyond the plan stage until the board takes action to prioritize them and fund them. So, if they're shown in our plan, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I would also recommend that we include the Route 3 arterial management plan as well.
I think both would be good to leave it, or to add the arterial lane management triggered by development, but also leave the 6-lane in. And then my last question is just, you talked about having to take land on Smith Station Road if it were to go all the way to Gordon. Is there a plan? I know that there's a section of that road that's almost a 90-degree turn. And, is that, if we were to widen Smith Station Lane all the way to Gordon, would that turn, that big sharp right 90-degree turn, leave? Would that be out of the plan, or would that still be there but 4 lanes?
I'm not sure if there were ever plans or conceptual plans developed for that project, but I would imagine that that would be straightened out through there.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Benton?
Bet you can guess what I want to talk about. The Spotsylvania expansion or Parkway expansion. I'd oppose that right now as far as expanding the comprehensive plan beyond what it already is. I don't know if Mr. Wheeler's here tonight. Oh, there he is. We may want to hear from Mr. Wheeler on that, but I will tell you, Tricord, this was, and if the board can recall, my very first board meeting, the comprehensive plan was attempted to be moved down to the NI, and is for the development of Tricord Homes that has a development planned right behind Bloomsbury, comes off of Smith Station Road. But again, this parkway, we have no alignment study done. I will go as far as to say, as far as the Garnett Farm there, when you go down the hill from the courthouse, that beautiful farm to the right, and they own the property to the left, is going to be dramatically affected by what we decide here. Again, I'm going to go by what the Planning Commission is recommending. We have this commission for a reason, and they're recommending that it at least be held off till later and another meeting held. But we have Tri-Court in the wings waiting to pounce to build homes, and for all we know, they're going to build the homes right in the middle of where the road needs to go. I just would beg the board to please, let's not move this. We can show it as a line on the map, but I certainly don't want to move the any of our lines to incorporate this and allow the construction there. This is years and years down the line. And again, you're going to hear from Mr. Wheeler, who's part of the Garnett family. This will, if I will go so far, I'd say about 60% of the property that's required. I don't know what it really is, but let's say 85% of the property is their land. It's got historical value, and it's, we're taking people's property. And I'm absolutely against that. Leave it a line on the map, and we can come back and look at it later on when we've done an alignment study for at least do that. But I am not willing to approve or to accommodate any moving of the lines to accommodate this for right now. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow Mr. Wheeler to come up and speak.
Well, there'll be an opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Jakubowski.
Thank you. Two questions. One is exit 126. Leaving it in our thoroughfare plan, the land that is currently there has been rezoned for 2 mixed-use developments that did not include any of the interchange, correct?
On the Jackson Village side, there was about 25 acres that was dedicated to the county. That's in the approximate location of where that Jackson Gateway interchange was proposed.
Okay, so we have about a quarter of the entire, okay. So all likelihood, exit 126 is not going to happen because we would then have to take land from those 2 rezoned areas to get the entire interchange done.
Mr. Yak, you're talking about 123?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 123. Yes, sir. Yeah, 123. So I don't know why we wouldn't take it out because it's, it doesn't seem to me that it's going to happen. The second question that I had was, all that we're doing right now is putting a line on a map. We're not moving the comprehensive or the PSD. We're not doing any of that. We're simply saying that this is the road alignment from the current parkway, and it's going to go that way. So there's nothing being taken. There's no land being put into the comprehensive plan in any other way. This is our thoroughfare plan, which is different than our growth plan.
That's correct. It would be a concept road, which I wouldn't even use the word alignment just because we don't know for sure what the alignment's going to be, but the concept is to connect point A to point B. And beyond that point, the board would need to prioritize and start putting funding towards studies to determine alignment and move the project forward. But at this point in the time, it would be a concept road shown on the map.
And if memory serves me correct, because in 2005, the bond referendum for transportation included Smith Station expansion. And we had some group that came in and studied the numbers and told us that the numbers that we had used, which were VDOT numbers, were woefully inadequate. And so the number for Smith Station Road to be expanded on the west side of 208 was something in the range of $50 to $100 million. I mean, it's a huge amount of money.
So I have $65 million in 2005.
I'm glad I used the 50 to 100 million. But in today's money, it's going to be obviously more than that. So the idea behind all of this was to put it through an open area, which was the original intent of the parkway, which was proffered back in 2002, was to be the first leg of the entire southern connection of the outer connector. And so we had that proffered for about $30 million, and this is the next step, is to take a look at it and see where could it go to connect not just to Gordon, but then eventually out to Route 3 is the idea behind it. And what it does also is it saves money on Smith Station Road and an awful lot of houses, as opposed to taking empty land or taking houses. Something down there has to be done. And so that's why this was being moved forward. But I do support what the Planning Commission says, is give it a study area. Let's not put a direct line. Let's give it the area. And as that comes later and as we study, we can fill in if we see so fit to do so. So, thank you.
Okay. I got a couple for you real quick. Really, on that same top, the Spotsylvania Parkway extension, I guess the issue I have with it, for one thing, is it just stops. So the concept should take it at least all the way to Route 3 or even across the, because this ultimately was the outer connector, the original outer connector path you're kind of following. How come, if we're actually going to show this, why don't we show it the whole way as a conceptually all the way across the river and tie back into Brea Parkway the way it was originally the concept? I mean, if you're going to put it out there and make a big move on it. The exit 123, I agree with leaving it in there because that is our designated growth area in the county, so that's the logical next place for an interchange. By putting interchange at 123, it significantly reduces the traffic at 126, which help our overall problems there. But again, I think with the new diverging diamonds, they're much less intrusive as far as property take, and since we've got proffered bridges and all that, it may not be that big and expensive for doing that. So I think it should stay as part of the study. So we do have an opportunity in the future to look at a Harrison Road and a 123 interchange type solution, particularly with those new diverging diamonds. So those are two comments I had on it right now. I just want to ask one other question. You mentioned earlier about you want to remove the 6-laning Route 3 from Andorra West because you don't want people to think that that's what's going to happen. And I say that because I just got a comment this week about a realtor questioning the value of a piece of property on Old Plank Road because the long-range plan shows a 4-laning Old Plank Road. But if that's unrealistic, that that's ever going to happen, why do we have it in the plan? I guess is the question.
Route 3 in particular was included in the plan because it's in the state's plan. In order for the county to be, the county needed to be consistent with the state's plan, and they had a 6-laning of Route 3. They moved forward then with this Route 3 access management plan because they realized that was highly unlikely because of, in particular, the National Park Service lands.
No, I agree with
and
you.
the costs. So they were looking at alternative ways to address traffic on Route 3.
But now what about Old Plank?
Old Plank, I don't have an answer for that one off the top of my
So if you
head.
could, that may be something.
We need to look at that.
Is that in our comp plan? I mean, is that something
it
we would need to
is.
amend here if we're not going to 4-lane it or if it's unreasonable?
We would need to study that separately. We couldn't cover it under this amendment.
Okay. All right. So, thanks. Any other questions? Mr. Sabula?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little confused on this defer action on the Route 606 corridor plan until after VDOT completes its public hearing processes. Why would we want to do that?
The Planning Commission felt that at that point in time, there would be a plan that people would be able to review, an actual plan rather than what you see up on the screen this evening, and that people could comment and the county would know better what the ultimate proposal was and could hear the feedback of the business owners and citizens in the area. So that was the thought, that why take action at this point in time when we know that we're going to know so much more about this project within the next 2 years.
But have we not already had a public hearing on this with a proposal that the public's had a chance to look at and comment on?
There was an informational meeting that VDOT held. It was in, I think it was in 2014, so it's been a little while.
There's been a recent meeting just within the last month. If I'm not mistaken. I was unable to attend, but that meeting took place.
I'm not familiar with that. The Planning Commission public hearing happened within the last month, and there were a number of business owners there.
Go ahead.
There was a VDOT public information meeting held at the middle school. That is correct, and that's what Ms. Parrish said. It was an information meeting. It wasn't a public hearing. It did have drawings. It did have information like that, just like they did when they did their kickoff meeting.
Right, because I know I've been involved in a lot of discussions there, and it just doesn't make sense to me to defer action on this. This needs to move ahead. So I would not want to defer action.
Any other comments? See none, let's open the public hearing. Is anyone signed up to speak?
Yes. There are 3 citizens signed up to speak. The first is Robert Wheeler, followed by Aaron Sherwood.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Garnett family, 9601 Courthouse Road. My name's Robert Wheeler. To answer some of your questions, why is it just a line on the map and why is it in there? Tricord came to us 24 months ago or so and they came to us with an offer to develop 900 or so acres of the farm, 12 to 1,500 homes. This may be news to some of you, some of it may not be news to you. We decided as a family we don't want that for the county or us. So that's why it ends there. Tricord has already looked into the road and they already had the line on the map. You, sir, we're talking about being pro-business in the county. My wife runs a horse business. We bring a lot of horses into the county and a lot of tax revenue through meals tax and room tax. So if you take, doesn't matter how you cut the farm up, if you cut it into 4, you can't farm it. It's not enough land to tree it. And there, on top of that, you're going to take the horse business away. So it's being driven by development. It has nothing to do with the outer connector, and it has nothing to do with the fact to get people where they need to be. It has to do with the development only. Furthermore, the Parkway just stopping at 4 lane or go to 4 to 2, they've got 4 lanes worth of right-of-way that continues all the way to Pelham Lane. So Trico owns 2 pieces of land in the proposed area that it's a 28-acre tract, which they put 80, I think you guys approved 82 homes on 28 acres. And then the Spring Grove development, which is another cluster development that they have not been successful in getting approved. And this is a backdoor way around trying to get it approved. So, you know, I think you really need to look hard and decide what you want to do with the county and the impact it's going to have on the area. Because we do our best to keep the farm looking well. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money. You know, Stars and Stripes Spectacular, people park up down both sides, we clean it up. No charge to the county. So, you know, I'm not saying the county needs to do anything special for us, but, you know, it doesn't matter whether you go on the east end of the farm, the west end of the farm. Bloom's area is going to push the road to the middle of the farm. If you cut a road through the middle of the farm, you essentially take a Civil War, actually predates the Civil War, the house is almost Revolutionary War. You start doing that, you're affecting not only the history of the county, but everyone's, I mean, you know, we pay a pretty big tax bill alone, and I know you say it's empty land, but when you're farming, it's not empty land, and those trees are a tree farm. If you cut it into 4, you can't tree farm it. I mean, that's just, it's not enough land there. So just, you know, guys, I think you really need to step back and think about what the impact of the whole road would have on the county. And like I said, the line on the map stops where it stops because that's where Tricord had already stopped it. So I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Aaron Sherwood, followed by Raymond Clark.
Good evening. My name is Erin Sherwood. I live at 7109 Hillwood Court in Bloomsbury in Mr. Benton's district. And I have done my best to notify my neighbors and the people in my community about the hearings and the information meeting. And Mrs. Parrish has done a great job getting that information out. The responses that I've gotten are not that, sounds great, go, I hope this road comes, it'll help us with traffic. The responses that I've gotten are, oh, I'm out of town, I'm on vacation, I can't go, I've got another commitment, kids got to swim meet, kids got to blah, you know, summer life. But that's the response that I've gotten. So I do know that there's a lot of interest in my neighborhood about this issue. And folks just are not able, have not been able to participate at the level in which they normally would. At the information meeting, I had numerous conversations with people from the transportation department and made some notes on a sticky pad and attached it to the map. I don't think I really realized that those were my official comments. And the reason I bring this up is that I was the one who wrote on the sticky note to move it west, the road, the concept road, but it wasn't to enable greater development. It was to ensure a buffer for my neighbors. And it wasn't to infringe on the Garnett's farm at all. But I think that you're hearing that there are a lot of issues from the concerned community about this road. And this is a very long project. I think it has an end date, 2025 or 2030, something way out there. So don't make haste. This is an expensive project. The alignment alone will cost $1.5 million just for the alignment. So before we even go there, let's sort it out the best way possible, because I don't think we're going to get a second shot at alignment. And make sure that we're doing this in conjunction with projects that are already heading our way, right? Is this road going to complement what is already there, or is it doing the job that another road will change in, when this is done in 15 years? Just make sure that it's being done with the big picture, and also take into consideration the ripple effect. We've heard some conversation about the primary development boundary. It will be extended to meet the parkway. It will. And there are issues relating to that and the development and how that will affect our rural community that we love. And that should be a consideration. And this road, this project alone, just this little segment, the 4-mile segment we're talking about, had a very preliminary budget of $90 million. That came from VDOT. This is a lot of money, but there's no rush. Take our time, hear your people, listen to your community, and make an informed decision.
Ma'am, please sum up. Your red light's on, your time is up.
Thanks. The Planning Commission recommended that it be pulled from this package and be considered independently, that there not be a road, there not be a line.
Ma'am, thank you. Your time is up.
Raymond Clark.
Hi, I'm Ray Clark. I live at 8108 McLaws Drive, which is on the Federal Parkway, where one of the things is they'd like to close that cutover that we have there. That was established between 1931 and 1942. The county has used that for many years. The public has used it. The Park Service, Congress met for that land to be used and viewed by the people. Not only the people that live on it, just because I live out there. There's many more facets. You got the tourism, you got the Marines that come there sometimes, you got people from Fredericksburg that comes there. Not only that, but the same easements and rights were given to all that property through there through the 40s. And my father even worked us on the CC camps when they did those roads. But on top of that, you affect all your subdivisions. You'll affect Saw Hill, Chancellor West, Lee's Hill, everything to Craig's Baptist Church up the road. And that has been used by all the public for many years, and I think there is more to it than just closing it. Maybe we need to look at modernizing it so that we can use it to improve tourism and help everybody out. And I want to thank you. And by the way, all that property that's out there, that intersection all belongs to the park. Does not belong to VDOT. They have an overlay. The intersection, the rest of it, which has been there, is Been theirs for years. In fact, my mailbox used to be out there on Route 3 on the far side. Thank you.
There are no other citizens signed up to speak.
Anyone that did not sign up wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
Todd Martinson, 4628 Partlow Road, Berkeley District. And just a point of order from the floor, listening in on the meeting. May I ask, is the point to the study to determine that we're going to take the land from the Garnett family? Is it private property?
Yes, it's private.
Then as a citizen of the county, I completely oppose it. Take it out. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak that did not sign up? Okay. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any board comments? Mr. Ross?
I'd like you to clarify, Wanda, this change to the comprehensive plan would include closing the intersection at McLaws Drive, Route 3?
I'm actually looking right now to try to find that in the report. Number figure 11.
Does it have other closures as well along Route 3?
McLaws. It has at McLaws Drive. It shows a. It says construct left turn lanes along Route 3 with 200 foot of storage and 200 foot of taper, and that's just to the west of McLaws. But it appears the crossover at 11, it says convert crossover to right in, right out.
I went to their informational meeting at Chancellor District.
So in what part of your brief is this covered to? Would it be the part that's triggered, the Route 3 study that would?
Correct. It would be triggered by development that occurs.
So there's all, but
within that
inside the
area.
plan, so could you go back, so could you confirm that and any other intersections that are in the comp plan amendment that would be to close?
Which would be closed? I could do a list.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm not comfortable with that either, and I'm not
Okay.
sure exactly why we would close that intersection either. It doesn't seem to be very dangerous at all. Okay.
I can do that, yes.
I don't know if we need to table this, that part of it until.
I was going to bring up, because we were engaged in the, VDOT did a corridor study throughout Route 3, because it was kind of low-hanging fruit, low traffic, and they came up with recommendations for either closing or enhancing different stops along Route 3. So they gave a recommendation, so we never really, I don't know, did we ever approve or say, let's move forward with those recommendations? Because I agree, I wouldn't close McLaws either. I don't even, as Mr. Clark said, that we may not even have the authority if that's Park Service land.
Yeah. And that is what this Route 3 access management or arterial management plan is. So if the board adopted it as part of the comprehensive plan, that would be your approval of the plan.
So if we stripped it out, then each one of those closures would have to come up individually if required.
Right, it would be studied with development as well, but we wouldn't have a plan that would guide us.
Right.
Or
Well, the work's been done.
Piecemeal, yes.
Right, but it wouldn't be officially adopted. It can be used as a reference for future developers, whether or not, but it wouldn't be I won't say a mandatory or something we would say we'd have to do.
Yes. And, I'd actually say that's what this would be if it was incorporated by reference, because the problem with looking at this as a mandatory plan is that development could happen anywhere in this corridor and affect the plan. So I think that we're going to constantly have to look back at it with VDOT to see if what is recommended in this study makes sense. But this would be, the baseline document that we would study from. So this wouldn't be adopted as a code. This would be adopted into the comprehensive plan as a reference material that we would look at this study, and we'd need to determine that those closures or those changes to those crossovers still make sense at, 2026. considering all the development that's happened and other improvements that have occurred in Route 3 area.
Any other comments? Mr. Skinner?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add to what you said earlier. I think it'd be a smart idea because when I see this road stopping at Old Plank Road, if I'm mistaken, Old Plank Road's 2 lanes, correct? That's what it currently is.
Correct.
So we see what a 4-lane highway does through Fox Point and coming down there. So I would like to see a future plan to take it from there all the way out to at least Spotsylvania County. We can't really tell Stafford what to do and where it's going to cross the river, but I think making that suggestion is probably a good idea to see what the future plan is, or in Plank Road, a 4-lane highway, something of that nature, and that's going to be difficult, I think, if you go to the north on that. So I just wanted to recommend that I agree with what you said. Maybe that's a good proposal to see what we can do to further at least look at where do we go after this? I mean, this is 20 years or whatever it's going to be. What's the next 20 years going to bring? At least see what we're doing.
Any other comments? Mr. Benton?
I'd like to make a motion, if I could, about going ahead and taking the Spotsylvania Parkway extension out for right now. We're going against what our own appointed planning commission members have suggested that we do. And I would like to make the motion to remove it for now. It can be looked at a later time. I think we have plenty, I'll just make a quick comment. We're wanting all this money from the federal government for all these roads, but we're acting no better than the federal government. We're having our hands out, but we're looking at our deficit and saying how terrible things are. But we as a local government are not doing anything to promote and help that situation. And it goes with all counties around the Commonwealth and every state and Commonwealth and district in our country. We're steadily keeping our hands out, but yet we're complaining about the deficit and all the spending going on with the federal government. At some point, our credit card with the federal government is going to be ripped up. It's just a matter of time. But I know I'm getting off subject, but I'm going to stand by my motion, and I would strongly encourage the other board members to support this. Like I say, our own planning commission members voted for this, or voted to table it and to look at it at another time. I suggest we do that.
Mr. Ross?
I just want to make sure we're just voting on this one thing. We're not voting on the entire comp plan changes at this time, correct?
So,
we can bring up, in other words, if this motion passes or fails, we can then make other motions as to what to include or not. We're not
right now, the motion is to approve this comp plan amendment minus the
Spotsylvania Parkway.
Spotsy Parkway.
Okay.
That's correct? But you want to...
Well, and I'd like to put some friendly emotions on it, amendments on it. One would be to leave the 123 interchange in. So I think it might make it harder for it to get through all 7 of us. And to keep the study area on I-95 all the way up to Route 3 and not cut it at the city limit. And to keep the 6-lane Route 3 from Andorra Drive out to Orange County included, but take out the intersection management part of that, so that we would look at those things one at a time in the future, and that these intersections would not be just all adopted into the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so the Route 3 arterial management plan would be a resource document that we use, but it's not incorporated into the comprehensive plan.
Correct. That would be my 3 amendments. And, yep.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Jakubowski?
Just a quick question. Can we do a study of a road in another locality in our comprehensive plan? I mean, we're not going to start coloring the city different colors.
Right.
I mean,
No,
it stops at the city limit for a reason.
Well, if I may,
yes.
I mean, on the west side, it's not the city, it's Spotsylvania County. On the east side is the city. So we're not studying the city side. As a matter of fact, I'm okay if we just study the west side, because if we're looking at collector distributor roads from Route 3 south, we want to include that last part from the city line / Spotsylvania County. There is no line there really. It's just on the east side, it's a city line. There is no line in Spotsylvania County that goes all the way to Route 3.
Right, so my question, again, was can we study? Because Mr. Ross keeps saying the city line is where it stops, which is where it stops. So, I mean, if we're going to study into the county, I mean, that's fine. But, you know, are we going to go and study into the city?
Mr. Chair, it keeps saying the city line is where it stops. There is no city line on the west side of Route 3. So it was briefed to us as the city line, but there is no city line on the west side of of I-95, correct? Until you get to Route 3.
So
Correct. So that's. I just want to clarify, Mr. Yakubowski, there is no city line.
No,
We're not talking that it stopped at a city line.
Yeah, and this is my understanding. This is just a generalized study area. We're not drawing a line and snapping the chalk and means you can't go over it. So I think the idea is that you give leeway for whoever's conducting the study an opportunity. If we need to look at something crosses over into Fredericksburg or Caroline, I don't see a problem with that because I'm sure that would benefit to the region as well. And I'm sure if the city had an issue with it, they could stand up and say, don't study us. But I don't think that'll happen. Any other comments?
Yes, please.
Mr. Yakubowski. Or
Thank you,
Mr. Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see the harm, at least in throwing this out here so that we have an idea of the impacts we may have on property. Nobody's saying that we're going to do this. This is just a plan, correct, Wanda?
That's
I mean,
correct.
it's a plan. And so I don't want to wait until the plan is too late, okay? Because I think one of the things we need to know is what the plan in the future is going to be, and also how we develop that area, what we allow to be approved out in that area, if the plan is to someday put a 4-lane highway somewhere out there towards that direction, okay? And I will only say the other thing is that Spotsylvania County has always had a balanced budget vice a deficit as the federal government has. I guess by law we have to do that. So I wouldn't say that we're as bad as the federal government either. But anyway, I will support the fact that I do want to see what the development is going to be, at least what the thought is. There's too many times that people say, hey, we wait too late to find out what the infrastructure and stuff like this. Based on what we think in the future, it might define what we're going to approve and what we're not going to approve. So,
Any other comments? Mr. Yakubowski.
Wanda, is there any, if this is removed, the extension is removed, that can be brought back up to be put in at a later date?
Yes.
Right,
It
so,
would go through the same public hearing process it has at this point.
okay,
Just
and,
start over.
and would we do that with, would it be when the alignment is done? Would it be when the preliminary? I know VDOT is working on some issues with it right now. At what point would it be the prudent time to put it back into the plan? When we have funding ready to go? When I don't know why we would take it out now if it's just a study area. I mean, geez, we have the 123 exit that was just approved development on both sides that will make it much more difficult to put in a 123 exit because now you're going to have to buy land that is zoned MU as opposed to industrial and I think it was agricultural or lower zoning than it is. Now it's higher dense zoning, and we just saw it at the VDOT parking lot, or I'm sorry, the VRE parking lot, where we just spent millions of dollars because that land was not secured beforehand. So at what point do we put it in? And this is really just the question that I have. We complain about traffic constantly and consistently, and there's good reason to. It's only going to get worse. 13,000 more homes have been approved over the past 6, 7, 8 years are going to be built. You're going to have traffic problems that exceed what we have currently. The issues that we have at 126 have taken years to get to this point, and they're years in the future to remedy. So at what point do we pull the trigger and we say, in the future, this is how we want our traffic map to look like, our transportation map to look like, to move people? Now, we can sit on our hands, we can wait around, and we can say, well, let's do that later. But it's going to cost even more money. All that this is a line on the map, and even not a line, it's a bubble, just saying in this area is where the road should go. And I will remind certain board members, and there were plenty of people that were here from the public, who were opposed to the comprehensive plan amendment for the growth area, but said time and time again, I'm not opposed to the road. And I'm glad, that's fine. We're not talking about the growth area being expanded. What we're talking about is having a bubble on the map to say this is where we want to put it. Now, if we don't want to do that, that's fine. What is the solution? How do we fix that area? I will challenge anybody to go down there at 9 o'clock on a school morning and sit on Smith Station Road heading towards Courthouse Road. You will sit there for 15, 20 minutes trying to get through that intersection. Coming the other way, same thing. Coming down 208, the same thing. And that's just with the growth that we have currently. So I'm not opposed to putting it in the map. I'm not opposed to saying this is in the future, this is what we think we might want to do. This stuff takes a long time to get from planning to actual building. But at some point, you got to pull the trigger and say, this is what we think it's going to look like. And I will also remind certain board members that they had absolutely no problem doing an IJR study that will very likely take some homes, some people's actual homes, not just property, but the actual residence that they live in. And if we were to widen Smith Station Road, which we've all talked about, we need to do something in that area. So our other alternative is widen Smith Station Road for at least $60 to $100 million. You want to talk about taking roads, you're going to take a lot of, not just land, but people's houses. So what this is trying to look for an alternative that is the least impact. Of course it has impacts. Everything has impacts. You cannot widen a road without imposing upon somebody. Just the intersection at 208 and Smith Station Road, right away was taken. People's houses have been taken. Levels Road, when you widened it, I'm sure everybody enjoys the 4 lanes. It's much better than the 2 lanes that was there 30 years ago, and how you'd have to turn and cut over by the dump. But that was all improved. People's houses were taken. But yet, if you don't plan for that, imagine if that was 2 lanes. So I humbly ask my fellow board members, this is not about growth. The growth area is not being expanded. What this is about is trying to plan for future transportation issues. That's all it is. If we want to take it up at a separate time and talk about it separately, I have no problem with that. But I would implore you to please think about what we want the county to look like in the future, because it's only going to go downhill from here. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got a question for you, Wanda. So if we take this, if we take the extension of the Parkway out, do we have any alignment study? We lose that.
No, and none has been initiated at this point in time. But ideally, the concept would be in the comprehensive plan to show that there is general support for it before moving forward with an alignment study.
So I just want to point out, I've got Mr. Spiel again.
Yeah, I would just like to comment. It's called a comprehensive plan, P-L-A-N, people. It doesn't mean we're doing it, it means we're planning. We're planning for the future. And the future can be immediate or it can be a long way off. For this road to impact the Garnett Farm, that could be 30 years down the road.
And we have
Sir,
Mr. Spillane, I'll take care of it.
Okay. It's a plan. If you like the plan, fine. If you don't like the plan, fine. It's just a plan. We can comment on it. We can change it. I'm not necessarily for or against it, but we need to plan for our future transportation. We need other corridors across this county to move traffic back and forth. This has nothing to do with the developer buying land or moving in or trying to do something. This has to do with transportation planning. You can agree with it or you can disagree with it, but it is a plan. And I can't emphasize that enough. And it's a plan that I think that we need to move forward with.
You know, I want to point out one thing. I think Mr. Yakubowski summed it up. There's been a lot of our targeted growth area in the county is south of 126, and that's where we should be focusing our resources on. And 123 or 122, wherever the alignment may lay out, makes more sense to put our assets down that way, our limited assets. And I'll say one thing about this corridor or the Spotsylvania extension. I was told, and Mr. Ross as well, I think will agree, when we were briefed on it originally, we were given 180-degree different information than what I heard from the public today. So that's why I'm not going to support that, and particularly until I get the facts straight, because right now what I heard is 180 from what I was told from some folks involved with the project. So at this point, we have a motion. Can we get that read back?
I may need some assistance, Amy. To approve the comprehensive plan amendment without the extension of Spotsylvania Parkway, but leaving in exit 123, 6 laning of Route 3 to remain in. The Route 3 arterial management plan is a resource document not incorporated in the comprehensive plan, and that's what I have on my list. I might have missed something.
The other thing was the study, the area study on I-95 that would go all the way to Route 3.
That's right.
By stopping at the
yes.
east side of the city line.
So that goes from Route 3 to?
So in the proposed comprehensive plan, they had it going from 126 to just north of Harrison Road,
Yes.
not all the way back to Route 3.
Good? Okay. Call the question.
Six yes, with Mr. Skinner voting no.
Mr. Chairman, next up is public hearing CA 15-0004. These are amendments to the Spotsylvania County noise ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I just have here the ordinance as proposed. The idea here is to incorporate zoning districts that have been included in our zoning ordinance in the last few years. These are changes to districts or new districts that are not captured in our current noise ordinance, and therefore there is no noise maximum level in these zoning districts. The districts in particular relate to the village and the mixed use. What we've done is put the zoning districts or sub-districts with the appropriate category. The noise ordinance allows for commercial uses to have a certain level of noise and residential uses to have a different level of noise. So we put those mixed-use sub-districts, MU4 and 5, which are the ones most akin to commercial with the commercial. We've eliminated village commercial because there is no village commercial designation anymore in the comprehensive plan. And then we here have eliminated village residential because there is no village residential in the zoning ordinance. We've placed mixed use 1, 2, and 3 with the residential classification because those districts allow for significant residential uses. And then the village designation is what replaced the village residential, and village commercial is also with the residential category. So you see here there are no changes proposed to the maximum decibels. The residential maximum daytime decibel is at 65, and nighttime is at 60, and then the commercial is at 70 and nighttime 65. So those two designations are where those new zoning districts lie. The other change has to do with the industrial uses. The current ordinance allows for an exemption for commercial and industrial establishments, which noise is customarily emitted by such commercial establishments or industries during daytime hours, which is from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It eliminates or industrial from that section and puts a new exemption that sounds very similar to that one I just read under as a general exception for all hours. So this would apply during nighttime hours as well for industrial uses. And that concludes the changes proposed to the noise ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And we do have a representative from the Sheriff's Office here. They are the entity that enforces this ordinance.
Mr. Trampy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what would apply to mixed use right now?
Nothing. There is no way to enforce noise in the mixed-use zoning district right now.
Because the ordinance pre-existed mixed-use zoning.
Correct.
Which zoning is this area right over here by the Merchant Square building?
I believe that's mixed-use 5.
Do you know, are there other mixed-use projects which are at the point of residents moving in yet?
No, there are not.
So it's really just that one at this point. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing Mr. Skinner.
Wanda, currently you've got, is the Speedway that we have at Thornburg, that's commercial, correct?
Yes, that is commercial.
So what we're doing there is we're taking it from a daytime of 70 down to 65?
Nothing is changing in terms of the noise levels, and there is already a exemption related to the Speedway. Number 12 here,
okay.
That's already been adopted into the ordinance. Oh, sorry, the floor computer.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, open the public hearing.
There are 3 speakers signed up. Charles Tatum, followed by Shamar Carson.
Good evening. My name is Charles Tatum. I'm in the Berkeley District, and I represent a new organization called Spotsylvania Residents First. I am here tonight to speak against the amendment of the noise ordinance as written because it does not protect neighboring residents. The county seeks to remove the time restriction on production of noise by industry, thereby increasing the nuisance beyond what the neighboring residents have accepted through established practice. An approach that does protect neighboring residents would be to allow increased noise production after hours, but require abatement so that there is no net increase to the residential neighbors, and the county would follow up to ensure that the abatement works. Unfortunately, the county did not do this when you amended the noise ordinance on behalf of Dominion Raceway. In that case, a large number of claims were made by supporters of the raceway about noise levels and why it could be exempted without harm to its neighbors. A reasonable person would expect that the county would condition approval of such an exemption on verification of those claims. Yet in our correspondence with Mr. Sebulo, and Deputy County Administrator Mark Cole, we determined that there were no conditions on the approval. The county took Dominion Raceway's word on every claim and had no plans to follow up. As a result, there are no limits on the noise that can be generated by the raceway. The claims made by supporters have been shown to be false, and no one in government seems to care that the neighbors are being harmed. Will you repeat this mistake and infringe again the ancient right of residents to quiet enjoyment of their land. As written, this amendment puts industry ahead of residents with no legal recourse. The county should balance evenly the rights of these two, not show bias toward one or the other. We urge you to change this amendment to incorporate protection for residents who are neighbors of noise producers. Do not take from them to give to industry or to anyone else. Make industry pay for the privilege of increased noise production by paying for the abatement of that additional noise. And make the county follow through with proper verification. Thank you.
Shamar Carson, followed by Joanne Razzo.
Good evening. My name is Shamar Carson. I'm at 9928 Box Oak Court. And we're directly across from where they're doing all this construction. I can hear every bit of it. So I know my neighbors have a little bit more detailed explanation for you guys, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. But just know that this is going to affect a lot of people. And you know, we're directly affected by this, and you know, I'm just hoping that you guys will make the right decision in reference to this, because we're suffering from it right now. There's no wall there. We can hear everything. The dust gets on our homes from the construction. I mean, this is like real time affecting us right now. And I wasn't even going to really say anything, but I felt compelled to say something, you know, based on everything that I've experienced. So that's all I have to say. I'm opposed to it. So thank you.
Joanne Razzo.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Razzo, and I live with Shamar at 9928 Box Oak Court. We live in Lees Park, and like he said, we're directly across the street from where the new Lidl warehouse is being constructed. And I, along with many of my neighbors, am opposed to amending the existing noise ordinance from daytime hours to all hours. This will certainly cause sleep disruptions to the many families that live in our community. Should a construction company decide to build an industrial site at 1 a.m. in the morning, which would be permitted should the board approve this amendment. So I urge the board to reject this amendment, and that's all. Thank you.
There are no other citizens signed up to speak.
Does anybody like to speak that did not sign up? Sir?
Good evening. My name is Patrick Kingston, and I live on 9918 Box Oak Court, right across the industrial park, where they're building the big warehouse. My bathroom is right across the entrance, and I can't even pull my shade up. They can see through my house. I can't even sit outside my porch. We moved into Lees Park about 4 months ago, and before we bought the house, the developer didn't tell us that they were building like a warehouse next to a house. So much dust, can't even sit outside. And I changed my filter for the first time. It was full of all kind of stuff. It's like, you know. So I'm opposed to the noise after 10 o'clock at night too, because there's a lot of noise. You can hear all the trucks back up during the day, and it's just like a little nightmare. Thank you. Okay.
Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, board members. I appreciate your time and taking listening to us. My name is Philip Taylor. I live at 9930 Box Oak Court. You heard from three of my neighbors. I'm from Brooklyn, New York originally, and one of the things that attracted me and my family here is the quality of life, the quiet quality of life. We are literally across the street from the warehouse. We hear every sound. And I know that the expansion of business in Spotsylvania County is paramount. We understand that. And we try to be good neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. We want to see the expansion. We want to see our real estate values grow. We want to see jobs created, but not at the expense of quality of life. That's essential. We hear literally every sound, 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday, Sunday. It doesn't matter. And I'm certain that if we went and we spoke to the powers that be, starting here, that you can understand our concerns, not just quality of life, property value. And so we implore you, please, please, Brooklyn is north of here. Let's keep it there. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any comments from the board? Mr. Yakubowski?
Thank you. Wanda, can you please address their concerns? And does this ordinance affect what is going on currently, or is this for new zones only?
No, the industrial provision would apply anywhere there is an existing or future industry. My read of the ordinance is that the construction activity, though, it says construction, repair, maintenance, remodeling, demolition, grading, or other improvement of real property is a daytime exemption only. That would be 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So once the warehouse is open for business, that is what would fall under the exemption that is proposed, and that would be the nighttime exemption as well. So the construction should be stopping by 10 p.m.
So currently it stops at 10 for industrial.
Currently, yes.
So why would we expand that? I mean, if it's working well at 10 o'clock, then what is the rationale behind doing that? Because we do have areas in the county, as residents have been here to express, that do live close to industrial parks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not sure, I understand the reasoning behind the new zoning needs to be incorporated so that we can deal with that issue. But why would we expand the industrial beyond the 10 o'clock that it currently is?
My understanding is that has to do with the fact that there's been a number of rezonings that have been approved that are residential in nature or residential components adjacent to industrial users. And this then provides protection to those existing residential users.
But I'm sorry, I'm all for protecting the residents and the industrial users. We need to make sure that we can all get along very well. But if we're changing it to expand the noise ordinance, is that my understanding? Am I correct?
Correct.
For industrial, why would we expand it? Why not just leave it as is? Especially because we do have areas, I mean, that's across Smith Station Road. And even though you do have a buffer, you know, a good tree buffer that should take some of the noise away, in the winter when the leaves are gone, it's not going to. So why wouldn't we just leave industrial as is and then deal with the other issues with MU?
That the board may adopt the ordinance in that manner if you wish. It's a policy decision, ultimately.
Okay, thank you.
So Wanda, who put that in the ordinance? Who made the recommendation?
Well, I inherited this from another person that's no longer with the county, so I'm afraid I just don't have the background history on that.
Okay.
Well, if I may, I think that one of the objects, the exclusion is protective of industry and wraps around noise or refers to noise that is only exempting noise that is typically or customarily emitted by such industries. And I think part of the object is that industries like the Lidl warehouse, like the CMC rebar plant, and perhaps some others in the county, another issue for them is operation in 3 shifts, particularly during their peak season. There will be trucks wanting to come and go from the Lidl warehouse at all hours. There will be shift work of industry and other locations around the clock. And this is focusing only on noise that is customarily and normally associated with activities.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Ross?
So, Mark, that makes sense, but I can't think of a tractor-trailer making more decibels than our noise ordinance would allow.
Understand.
Already.
And so the exemption is only for customarily, ordinary and customary, and Carl may want to speak to this point, but I think as the ordinance is presented, if there is an extraordinary or abnormal noise that's not normally associated with the Lidl warehouse and that exceeds the decibel category in industrial, it would not be exempt. The exemption is only for ordinary and customary noise associated with the type, not for extraordinary noise that is not typical for the industry. Is that not what the language says? In other words, there would be protection for the community from extraordinary noise in excess of the decibel limits stated in the table. But ordinary and customary noise that is lower than that decibel limit would be permitted under the exemption as the ordinance is written.
So a follow-up, how do we monitor the noise? I've gotten a few complaints here and there on noise. How are we measuring it, and are we enforcing it?
That's where the sheriff's office may want to come and speak to the issue, because they have the calibrated meters, and they are our line of enforcement.
That's correct, sir. In 2009, we bought X-Tex sound meters that we calibrate before tour duty, at the end. And we make certain measurements by the county ordinance. In this situation, if you had the industry next door to residential, we would have to go inside the residence on permission from the owner and make a measurement 4 feet from the wall and make about 3 measurements and then give a mean measurement from that.
So how often do you end up actually going out and making these measurements, and does it happen very often?
We don't get a lot of complaints. I mean, we do get a lot of noise complaints, but usually when we get there, we warn the homeowner or whatever the case may be, and they stop the noise. Right. Sometimes we've had, and we've gone to court, and the judge likes to see where there's a verbal warning, possibly a written warning, and then from there, a summons to appear in court for the Class 3 misdemeanor violation.
And I'll just, one of the questions came about the racetrack, and in the past about the noise emitted and stuff. Have we done any measurements since the races have began?
We have not been asked. We've had a couple complaints. That's when they went beyond the 11 p.m. And that was that one day at night where they lost power, and that race continued for a few minutes after. We did get complaints from that.
So up till 10 or up to 11, is there a threshold? Exempt, but after 11 on?
As I recall, and this is just speaking off the top of my head, when we researched it for the individual that made the inquiry, the motorsports are exempt on weekends and holidays from the noise ordinance up until, I think, 11 p.m. at night.
And during the week?
During the week, there is some. I think it's for the normal. They're not exempt, but on weekends and holidays, they're exempt.
At some point, we just get some reference numbers. Since you just get some readings, just for future reference on the racetrack.
We could do that. We could also get with zoning, because I issued them one of my sound meters.
Oh, that'd be fine if they did it. That'd be great. And it's just for informational purposes. I mean, yeah. Okay, appreciate it. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Benton?
I guess you inherited this, but what prompted, do you have any idea what prompted this ordinance change? I mean, have we had issues?
What prompted the ordinance change overall was the fact that we do not recognize all of our zoning districts within it, and therefore in the mixed use in the village, there is no limit on noise. So that's what prompted it, was a cleanup.
Okay.
Mr. Trampy?
Chairman, I move that we approve just the changes with reference to village and mixed-use classifications.
Any comments? Call the question.
Seven yes.
Thank you.
You want? See the best way to explain.
Next item, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Taylor,
Yeah.
Mr. Rawson, actually, could you explain what was just in the mixed-use ordinance, what changes were, real quick, so everybody understood in the audience?
Yes, sir. So the amendments to the noise ordinance, under the definition, commercial district classification deletes reference to village, commercial, and insert, which no longer exists, and inserts reference to MU4 and MU5 zoning districts. Under the definition of residential zoning district classifications, there is the deletion of A1 and VR classifications that no longer exist, and the addition of MU1, MU2, MU3, and V for village in the zoning classifications. That's for residential zoning district classifications definition. And those would be the only changes.
So, Mr. Chair, just for the audience, then the industrial did not change. So the times did not change on industrial.
All right. Mr. Taylor, what's next?
Next is the board's hearing of the Henderson claim, sir.
So how about we take a 5-minute recess, get a chance for people to clear out that don't, and then, form back at 8:10. All right, let's call the meeting back to session.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is the board's consideration of the claim presented to the board by Henderson Construction Company. Henderson Construction Company submitted a formal claim letter to the county on June 9, 2016, asserting a right to recover payment from the county in excess of $4.4 million related to the Route 3 winding project and construction on Cherry Road. Pursuant to the terms of the contract in Virginia Code Section 15.2-1245, Henderson's formal claim must be considered by the county for a decision as to whether to allow or disallow, that is, to pay or not pay the claim. Following the county's consideration of this issue, and as required by the terms of the contract between Henderson and the county, Henderson must be formally notified of the county's decision by registered mail on or before September 8, 2016. The attorneys and county staff who have reviewed and analyzed this claim strongly recommend that it be denied. In my opinion, and the opinion of outside counsel engaged by the county, Henderson's claim is not before the board in proper form, is not before the board upon proper proof, and ought to be denied because Henderson presents claims and demands that are not supported or well-founded, considering the applicable law and the facts of the matter. The most notable reason that the claim of Henderson Construction Company ought to be denied is because Henderson Construction Company is seeking to recover more than $3 million in idle equipment damages. In other words, Henderson asserts it is entitled to recover more than $3 million from the county because it alleges it was required by the county to keep its equipment ready to work on the county's project and that it was unable to utilize its equipment to work and make money on other projects. The county never issued such a demand or directive, and the evidence indicates that Henderson utilized its equipment on other projects during that period of time. There are numerous assertions in Henderson's formal claim letter that simply are not correct. Henderson has asserted that the county is responsible for delays associated with the project, and that is not the case. There are delays throughout the project that can be attributed to Henderson Construction and its subcontractors. And there was an eight-month delay following substantial completion of the work on Cherry Road before the project reached final completion. That 8-month delay is attributable to Henderson, and the contract provides that the county is entitled to recover liquidated damages for its delay. But Henderson Construction will not acknowledge that. Henderson has requested payment for extended overhead, additional traffic control, and other alleged direct and indirect costs associated with delays. These charges are not justified considering the nature of certain delays, the responsible party for certain delays, and change orders entered by county and Henderson. The letter states that none of Henderson's claims have been paid, but some of the amounts claimed due by Henderson and its additional work order have already been paid by the county. For the reasons including but not limited to those presented in the summary to the board, I recommend and ask the board deny the claims of Henderson Construction Company. Henderson's representative will now have the opportunity to make a presentation to the board in support of their claim. This will be limited to 15 minutes. Following that presentation, the board may pose questions to Henderson's representative or attorney. Finally, following the questions and answer session, the board will need to make a motion to either accept or deny Henderson's claim.
Sir, you will have 15 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, you will have 1 minute remaining. And at 15 minutes elapsed, the red light will go on and your microphone will go off.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Gary Bollert, counsel for Henderson Construction Company. Virtually all of my work is resolving construction disputes and claims. I represent Henderson Construction, a private contractor, but most of my work, the vast majority, is for public entities, much like Spotsylvania County. I represent routinely Arlington County, Virginia, on its construction disputes. I represent the Virginia Railway Express routinely on their construction matters. I've been appointed by the Office of Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia as special counsel for construction matters. I bring that to your attention for the simple reason that I recognize that this body is a steward of the public funds, but I'm also privileged to counsel bodies like this to remind them of their obligations to honor their contractual commitments to companies like Henderson when actions of the county or failures to act by the county have delayed a project and caused an adverse cost impact. With me tonight is Greg Henderson and David Henderson, the president and vice president of Henderson Construction. And towards the end of this presentation, Mr. Henderson, Greg Henderson, is going to address the board and tell the board how surprised they are that the county is pushing them towards court and towards litigation. Mr. Henderson is going to offer an alternative to that. The board's also going to hear, and I'm mindful of our short period of time, from Blake Pack, who is a very well-credentialed and very experienced construction consultant who came into the project while it was ongoing, did the scheduling analysis, and has prepared that equipment claim that council mentioned in the amount of $3 million using well-established industry practices. Also with us is Mr. Frank G., former chief engineer of VDOT. Mr. V was the quality control manager for Henderson during the project, and he's here tonight to ask any questions the board might have about those delays and the very real cost impact that those county delays, many of them intentionally caused by virtue of how the county went about condemning property, which would be the right-of-way for Henderson to be able to proceed with its work. In an article appearing this last Saturday evening in the Freelance Star, a county spokesperson was quoted disputing Henderson's demands, calling them, and I quote, substantially inflated and not supported by the applicable law and facts. I can tell you that Henderson is here tonight, and those of us that have participated in the formulation and pricing of those claims couldn't be in more strong disagreement with that statement. We recognize from the board's agenda that the claim is attached, and we know that this claim is not new to the board or its consideration. But what I think is important to address with you this evening is why are the parties so far apart on this claim? And that's what I would like to address before I turn it to Mr. Peck and Mr. Henderson. Well, the reasons are twofold, and they have absolutely nothing to do with an inflated claim or the lack of applicable law or lack of facts. The first reason, as counsel mentioned, of the $4.4 million of the claim, $3 million relates to the pricing of Henderson's contractor-owned equipment during the 821 days of delay caused by the county on the project. Although that claim has been submitted to staff, and we've met over and over again with staff, and they've been critical of how aspects of that claim were presented, that claim was refined over time. And despite the criticisms that have been levied, the county has never priced that claim in any manner. And that's an omission. And although counsel mentions that they don't think that Henderson's entitled to the amount they seek, the answer can't be zero. And in fact, as Mr. Peck will explain, any recognized industry method of pricing that equipment during that delay will translate into millions of dollars. And we ask that the board consider that and perhaps direct the county administrator to, for the first time for the county, make that computation. Because if the county doesn't do it, a court will. The next issue, and why are the parties apart? Well, $3 million of the claim is the equipment. And of course, there's going to be a huge gulf if one side has priced it according to industry standards and the other side has never priced it at all. That's going to lead to a big difference. The second issue is that with respect to $874,382, the county has admitted in writing that they owe that money to Henderson because of the delays. And that's tabs 5 and 6 to the claim. But after the fact, the county's now come back and said, oh no, we have offsets. We have these liquidated damages. Well, as a matter of law, as a matter of fact, as a matter of contract, those liquidated damages don't exist at all. The county delayed Henderson, not the other way around. And the period of time that counsel mentioned is while Henderson was doing punch list work. And there's no basis in law or fact for the county to be using the project and assessing the full measure of liquidated damages while punch list work is being done. It's simply an unjustified offset. And the additional offset that's come up more recently is despite 3 bilateral change orders that the county has executed with Henderson. First, they deleted Cherry Road out of the project in place of having Henderson do an enhanced version of the Killarney Connector. And then after all that work is done, FHWA and VDOT said that Cherry Road had to come back in, and the county's executed 3 change orders with Henderson. And they paid Henderson, but to then come back now and say after all of that, somehow the county is entitled to a credit, well, it's simply not based in fact. So I'm going to ask Mr. Peck to address the issues on equipment.
Thanks, Gary. I am Blake Peck. I'm President and COO of MVP. We're a 300-person construction consulting firm with offices throughout the Commonwealth. Most of our practice is focused on representing owners on their projects and programs, something I've done since 40 years since graduating from West Point. Over the last 30 years, I've had quite a bit of transportation project experience in the Commonwealth, to include working for VDOT counties and cities with extensive locally administered and design-build project experience. I also have extensive experience evaluating change orders and claims. With that in mind, I was called in the summer of 2011 to determine the schedule impacts and help Henderson mitigate schedules. This evolved into monthly schedule updates and, again, tracking the schedule and documenting the as-built schedule. One of the things I've always enjoyed working with Henderson's is that they were always more interested in building the project than building the claim. And to the point when left to its own devices, Henderson on this project, whether the early part of the project west of the 7-Eleven to the once freed on the right-of-way on the original contract to the actual execution of the change order work for Cherry Road, actually exceeded all schedule predictions. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And there are extensive periods, months, where the Henderson did not have full access to the project. The performance was extended, and it shows up in the equipment costs. So over 2 years ago, I was asked to price the equipment impact. As I've done on numerous claims, I looked to the methodology included in the contract. It was very similar to what's been used by the Federal Highway, VDOT, and every other DOT within the United States. Since then, I've met and responded to county questions to the point where I have great confidence in the $3 million being requested. In spite of its expressed concerns over my pricing, the county staff members have never provided an alternative method. And any industry alternative method that I'm aware of would result in a seven-figure evaluation of that. I believe the county's interest would be best served to price the equipment appropriately and so that it can properly evaluate this claim. Greg?
Good evening. My name is Greg Henderson. I'm here on behalf of my brother David and my father, who's not here tonight. But Henderson Construction has been doing business in the Fredericksburg area, Stafford and Spotsylvania, residential work, government work, private work, for 50 years. David and I have been actively involved in the company for 30 years plus years. And over that period of time, we've established and maintained a very high level of confidence in the community. We're very respected. We have a reputation of meeting deadlines and being a very good contractor. And I think if you go to your department heads in the local community, even in the city of Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, where we do most of our work, I think you will see that they speak highly of us and that we're not a litigious contractor, don't have a reputation of being litigious. This job we targeted. We were one of 3 pre-qualified bidders. We bid the job and was awarded the job. And I think that when we were awarded the job, most of the people in the local community, I know VDOT was happy that we were the ones that awarded for the project. And on that day, we came to sign the contract. I think our name's on the bottom line of that contract. And the county's representative's name is also on the bottom line of that contract. And that contract was tied into a fixed date job. The project had a fixed date in which it had to be completed. We never lost sight of that date. We committed staff, we committed equipment, and we committed a game plan to get that job done by that date. I know his comment about the equipment and that the project was moving along at the pace that we could reach that date. And at that point in time, when the project slowed down, We needed some condemnation of land. There were some properties that we were not allowed to work on, and we could not work full force on the project. We're not in the business of condemning land. We don't have the authority to do that. The only thing we can do is do the work. The equipment that he's speaking of, if we had another project to take it to put it to work, we did that. I think you know, for a typical process of bidding new work, it's 8 to 12 months. If you're bidding work today, it's probably for something that's starting in 8 months. We just can't stop work today, and take people and equipment and put them to work that easily. It's just not done. So on that basis and the contractual basis, I really think that the county took their eye off the targeted date. And that targeted date had some very serious liquidated damages and consequences to us. So we didn't have the liberty of losing sight of that date. So we actively pursued that date, and I think the county will testify to that. The people that were administering the job will testify that we stayed committed to that date. So I really ask you to look seriously at this claim. I think I'm not so sure you're getting good advice. So thank you very much.
In summary, what we ask the board is to either accept the pricing of this claim, which we do think has been appropriately put forward and should be adopted by this board. But if the board isn't ready to do that, and it may not be because an evaluation has never been done of the equipment with respect to the pricing of that equipment, then we do ask that the board use a mechanism to accomplish that, and perhaps the county administrator evaluating it and issuing a decision on that, as council said, on or before September 8th of 2016. We very much thank you for your time, and we ask that the board proceed in that way. Thank you.
At this time, if the board has any questions, now would be the time to ask Henderson.
So the board has prepared some questions, and I'll read them, and if whoever's going to answer them, I'd appreciate that. So I'll just read them from my prepared notes here. So number one, do you contend that a representative of Spotsylvania County instructed Henderson Construction to hold its equipment in ready to perform work during the claimed delay period? If so, who issued that instruction to Henderson Construction, and who was that instruction issued to?
The answer is that the county absolutely caused Henderson to keep their equipment held in ready, and the instruction is a constructive instruction because the county caused delays but never granted time extensions. And so what the effect of that is an instruction to the county that you have to keep your equipment there ready. And as these parcels were not condemned and not released and the right-of-way was not provided, the county kept saying, it's coming, it's coming, it's going to be made available, all of which I would contend are in fact instructions to the contractor, keep your equipment held and ready. Keep it there on the project, which is exactly what Henderson did. The county had an option to say, listen, we don't have the right-of-way, and we don't think we'll get it for an extended period of time. And we want you to stop work, demobilize, take your equipment off the site. The county instructed the opposite. And so, Mr. Chairman, we do state that the instruction was given in that form by the county.
And who was it issued to, specifically?
Right?
Yeah. You want
we were never directed to, we were always directed that, hey, you have a fixed date contract, you need to finish this job. And then at the same time, we're being promised right away, week after week. We had bi-monthly meetings, weekly meetings, and we were always being told, you're going to get this right away, you're going to get this right away. But we were never once told that, hey, we're going to help you out on the time. You don't have to finish this job on time. You don't, you know, we were never directed to take our equipment away and save the county money or to, you know, do anything.
So nobody instructed you?
The biggest issue, we were never instructed to do anything, and that's failure to instruct, because we're looking at a contract that has a fixed date, and we have to finish that job unless instructed otherwise.
So I'll just be clear on the question. So you state that the county instructed you to keep your equipment in ready, but nobody was told.
Well, the fact that
Who did the county specifically state to and direct to hold the equipment ready? Who was that person?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Frank G., and I was a quality control manager on the project for Henderson Construction Company. Each 2 weeks, we had a meeting with county staff, VDOT staff, to discuss the project. When the board took action back in the spring of 2012 to finally condemn the property, we then instructed the county attorney to proceed with the condemnation procedures. We expected that that would take place within approximately 30 days. At each of those meetings that we held after that, every 2 weeks, the subject came up, and the county's representative that was present there at the meeting specifically said the county attorney is in the process of filing the condemnation procedures, and you need to be ready to go as soon as those things are done.
Okay, so let me just
And
make
you
sure.
want a name? I hesitate to give a name right here, but it was a member of the county staff that attended every one of those
Right.
meetings, in addition to the county's hired consultant.
So so the question was, who issued the instruction and who received the instruction? So,
The county designated representative, who is Becky Golden.
okay. She specifically told you to hold the equipment in ready?
She said that the county attorney was in process of filing the condemnations, and the right-of-way will be available for
Okay.
Henderson to have everything
So
ready
just-
to go.
Just to keep moving on, are you stating that Becky Golden told Henderson Construction to hold the equipment in the ready?
Not directly that, but by her inactions of saying everything was going to proceed, you need to be ready to go
So-
as soon as the county attorney finishes
but-
its condemnation.
But nobody from the
And
county.
this condemnation lasted for over 8 months.
I understand, but nobody specifically told Henderson Construction to hold the equipment in the ready.
Not specifically in
Okay.
those words, no.
And so since nobody actually told Henderson to hold it in a bay or in the ready, that means they didn't specifically tell somebody, correct?
No, but they held equipment there under the assumptions of what the county was telling them was going to proceed with the condemnation.
Okay. Let me go on to the second question.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
You know, by awarding us a contract and telling us we have a deadline to get work done.
Sure.
That's telling us we have to have equipment on the job. I mean, how do you meet deadlines without, well, the problem is the equipment wasn't working because we couldn't work in these areas that the land wasn't condemned. I mean, you get a job that you're supposed to take 2 years and you have to plan for. You have to plan for, you have to commit equipment to.
Sure.
You have to commit staff to, okay? And then there's critical paths to the project that
Sure.
you cannot work on.
Understand.
And
But I was just saying, the
you will
first-
not find anybody in the
Right.
construction industry.
Right,
that
I'm
will
just
not
going
say
down the
there's
questions. I'm just-
significant cost sufferings.
So the first question, but nobody specifically said. And that's the key right there. Nobody directed you to keep that equipment on the site. That's,
Well, respectfully, I would contend that's the opposite. No. What we've heard is
Who
that
was
there
the
wasn't.
person?
Becky Golden, by saying, be ready to go as soon as we get the property.
That's not what was just stated. So let's move on to the next question. Number 2, do I understand that Henderson Construction is asking the county to pay it more than $3 million of taxpayer money for equipment that was not used on the project because it was allegedly held in ready or idle?
Because it was being held and ready on the project. I don't know that it
Yeah,
wasn't
so
being
the-
used. It was committed to the project. It's
Right,
being
so-
used, consumed by the county during that time frame.
So just real quick, I think your answer is yes, but I want to make you state it. Do I understand that Henderson Construction is asking the county to pay it more than $3 million of taxpayer money for equipment that was not used on the project because it was allegedly held in ready or idle?
The only variance to that question is the equipment was used. It was being used and consumed by the county. Henderson was being deprived of the useful value of that equipment elsewhere, so it was being used, but it was idle.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Your formal claim letter states that uncertainty and lack of direction from the county prevented Henderson from pursuing or performing other work with his equipment that remained committed to the project. So none of the equipment Henderson is trying to charge the county for was used on any other projects during the periods in question. Do you know that the county staff's review of documents Henderson submitted indicates that some of the equipment was moved on and off the county project to work on other projects?
And those adjustments have been made.
Yeah, that's a complete mischaracterization, and you know, it's an insightful question, just like much of the Mr. Franklin's statements have been, but it's a total mischaracterization. And the fact that you want to punish Henderson for mitigating damages for when it did come up with temporary work, and that credit's been given. So I think, you know, you can ask the question.
Well, I think the question is simple.
Way, but the point is that nothing has been charged to the.
But you did use some of the equipment on other projects during this
and we
period.
never claimed not to have.
Okay.
I think the preface of your question is unfortunately a mischaracterization.
Okay, so equipment was used, it was taken off the project, so not all the equipment was used idle.
The county wasn't charged for any of the equipment that was used. In fact, there's a credit. The way the pricing manuals work is that there's a blue book.
But I do understand. I mean, I have a background as well. But I'm just, earlier we stated in the first question that the equipment was mandated to stay on site. And in this one, you stated that, yes, equipment was taken off site, but you did give a credit back to the county. Is that correct?
When it could be used somewhere else.
But you did, well,
the credit was given
I do understand
to the county.
that.
Yeah, county's not being charged
I'm just
for
making
any
sure that
equipment used elsewhere.
When we had work somewhere else to do, and we could get work for someone else to do.
I just want to clarify because the first.
We did take it off
You
site.
did. That's all I'm clarifying, because in the first statement, none of the equipment was allowed to move off the site. In the third question, you stated that equipment was taken off and used on other projects. I just clarifying that's what you said.
But I mean, it's very, when they're telling you that, I don't know how we can acquire work elsewhere when we have a deadline to meet here. What if we take half of the equipment off that job and go to work on another job? How are we going to complete this job on time?
Well, again, as you talk about critical path and all that, but at some point you did take equipment off the job site to do another project.
Absolutely, and every man that we could, because we couldn't work them there.
Well, I understand. I mean, that's good management.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
did you ask the county for relief from the alleged equipment requirement to hold the equipment back?
Yes, there were multiple notices of delay and notices to the
Specifically,
county.
did you send notice to the county asking for relief from holding the equipment on site?
Economic relief?
No, did you send a letter or some kind of correspondence to the county stating or requesting relief of the requirement to hold the equipment on site?
I don't know if that letter is there or not. There's certainly notices of delay and the intention to claim compensation.
No, but
And
did you
the
specifically
contractor has-
request that you get a relief from holding the equipment on site as was stated in the first question?
Well, the contractor has the means and methods in order to construct the project. So the contractor has the equipment there. The county says you have to be ready to go. They staff the project with their equipment. There's no obligation to ask the county for relief.
Well, you stated that you must hold the equipment on site.
Correct.
So if that was harmful to the overall management of the company, why didn't you request relief for that requirement?
Because the county repeatedly was telling the contractor every 2 weeks, be ready to go. We're going to have the access for you.
But now that you state that, you did pull the equipment off the project anyway, so you did use the equipment that was on the site. You did pull it off for other projects during this period.
Not correct, not all of it.
You did pull some of the equipment off the site.
Some of it where it could be used
So
productively
then there wasn't a
elsewhere.
hard, fast requirement imposed on the county that you must maintain that equipment on the site. Because if that was the case, you would not have been able to pull the equipment off for another site, another project. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct, because they needed the equipment there in order to
Right, but
resume construction.
Just
when-
follow my train of thought here. You stated earlier that the county mandated that you maintain that equipment on site. And then you just said that you did take equipment off-site to do other projects. So then if that was the case, the county could not have mandated that the equipment remain on site. You had the leeway to remove it. Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry, with all due respect, you are not understanding how the contractor approaches construction of the project. They
Okay.
bring their equipment to the site, and they have it there, and it needs to be there in ready.
Until he had a project on another site, which again, he took that equipment off the site and did work on another project, as stated on the previous question. That's correct?
They own the equipment. They can
That's-
move it on and off the site.
Exactly. And that's what they did. They moved it on and off the site, regardless of whether the county allegedly told them to remain on site, which you stated they did not because nobody from the county directed you to maintain the equipment on site, which is obvious from the fact that you took equipment off site and used it on other projects. Okay. Because you cannot produce a written request to the county stating relief from that requirement.
We did put them on notice of an intent to file a claim.
Did you send a letter to the county? First question, you stated the county mandated you maintain that equipment on site and you can't use it anywhere else, which obviously was not the fact because you used it on other projects. But the question is, if that was the intent at the time.
We used the equipment that we had on that job that was sitting idle on another project when we could.
Sure.
Because we couldn't use it there.
Right, so you took the equipment that was sitting idle and
Just
used
like you
it.
said, it was good management.
When you had another project, you took the equipment that was sitting idle and used it. If you didn't have a project, it sat idle, right? So there was no written request going back asking for relief from that supposed requirement.
Not true. There's multiple notices of
Where-
delay. What
have
that's
you shown
telling
it?
is,
Have you provided the written request to the county official that you state required you to maintain that equipment on site?
yes, there's multiple letters. I think there's 7 or 8
Did you produce
notices of
those?
delay. Yes, they're in the May 2nd claim.
All right.
We offer it as part of the June 9th claim.
And it
If-
addresses to the person that you stated required you to do that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's go, do you really contend that all of the delays encountered on this project were attributable to Spotsylvania County?
The delays that were captured by Mr. Peck in his scheduling analysis, yes. That's
All
tab
the-
3.
So
of
all the
June-
delays?
I don't know if all the delays, but the delays that were captured as critical delays,
So not all the delays were alleged to the county's issues? So there were delays attributable to the contractor as well, is that correct?
All the delays that were contributed were delays that were possibly caused by other means and methods.
Okay.
But that 871 days that we are claiming were all caused by Spotsylvania County.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, excuse me for the interruption. Could you make sure they speak into the mics for the people?
Sure,
Just
when you
so
do
that
approach,
everybody
just
hears it.
approach the
Thank
mic if you don't mind, thanks. So let's go on another question. It looks like the design phase was planned to be complete by July 6, 2010, but it was not complete until October 25th of 2010. Why isn't this 3.5-month delay attributed to Henderson and its designer?
Well, it was a phased project, and there was design, and there was also right-of-way procurement. And what it comes down to is the delays on the right-of-way overcame any design delays.
Specifically
They're
during
not
that design
critical.
phase.
It's the short answer. They're not critical.
So the delay on the contractor's issue is not critical? Is that what you're saying?
In this case, yeah.
Okay. All right. In your letter,
Wasn't there, part of that issue with the design, this is a design-build project in nature, okay, so that we don't have to have a completed, 100% completed plan, eastbound, westbound for the project. And the county insisted that we have a completed plan, eastbound, westbound for the project.
okay, so there was a 3.5-month delay, but you state it's not critical.
That's, we still were committed to getting completion on the fixed date, and we had to. That was maybe that made working Saturdays or whatever. We still stayed committed to that date.
The delay was not critical. The project was based on the schedule that we turned in every month. The project was still on schedule up to the point that the county could not condemn the property, and then the following month it showed it was behind schedule.
So in your letter, you failed to mention that the realignment of Cherry Road was part of the county's request for proposals. Before Henderson Construction was awarded the project, it submitted a bid to Spotsylvania County for a price to widen Route 3 from a 4-lane divided roadway to a 6-lane divided roadway and to realign Cherry Road. Is that correct? Okay. Could you say in the microphone? We just got to, yeah.
Yes, we
Yes.
bid the job as advertised.
Okay. Next question. How can Henderson Construction now claim that it is entitled to extended field overhead costs related to the Cherry Road work it completed in 2014 when Henderson and the county entered in a specific change order for that work for a specific price? Henderson Construction did not mention or request time extension for these extended field overhead costs when it presented a cost to complete the work or when it agreed to change to the change order. Is that correct?
It's not, because in the May 2nd claim, the initial claim, it was stated that the amounts claimed there were exclusive of Cherry Road and that a second work order would be requested, and we reserved our rights to the time and extended performance period when the design and the construction of Cherry Road was known. So it was expressly stated in the May 2nd claim, and it was always presented, and the county always knew that that extended performance cost was going to be presented.
Okay. So considering the points we've just addressed, does Henderson Construction want to amend or revise the claim before the board before it makes a decision?
We see no reason to, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That's fine. So as the chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the claim of Henderson Construction Company be denied, that legal counsel prepare and send a required notification to the county's decision on or before September 8th, 2016. Any comment, question? Call the question.
Seven yes.
The claim is denied, 7 votes to 0.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's, so next would be back into closed session on the economic development item that we were unable to cover over the dinner time.
This will be your closed session resolution. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desired to adjourn into closed meeting for discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business's or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, specifically relating to a museum business and a manufacturing business. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A5, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters.
Motion?
So moved.
Call the question.
Seven yes.
Open meeting resolution. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on the state pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2, 3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors hereby returns to open meeting and certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion to convene into closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Benton.
Aye.
Mr. Trampy.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mrs. Beulah.
Aye.
Mr. Yakubowski.
Aye.
The chair votes aye.
Takes us, Mr. Chairman, to the county administrator and county attorney's reports and to the board reports. I will be very brief, have a couple of pieces of news I can't resist. I sent press releases around today. Spotsylvania has earned a AAA credit rating from our friends at Fitch Ratings. and that is very, very big news for us. It came very quickly this week, even this afternoon, with Fitch themselves issuing a press release, and we are developing a plan to put that story out to the community and make the best use of it in our economic development and other efforts. Second, it is also the 6th anniversary of the John J. Wright Museum. That is coming up on September 8th, 2016. Since you will not be meeting again between now and that occasion, we've taken the liberty of drafting a letter for the chairman to sign congratulating the John J. Wright Museum on their 6th anniversary. And again, that's upcoming on September 8th. And would ask the board's consent to the chair signing that letter on behalf of the board and the county. Finally, if I could have the floor computer, please. Uh-oh. Could you bring my consent agenda back up for just a moment? I did want to make the community aware of an upcoming event. If I can find my note here. Yes, there, August 25th through 27th, down at Waller's Church, historic Waller's Church in Partlow. They are having a revival. They also have on Wednesdays one of the most fun events I've attended in the county every Wednesday, rain, snow, sleet, or shine, drive-through prayer down at Waller's Church from 5 to 6 p.m. And it's a pleasant ride on the right day and a really fun event, and I wanted to make the board and the community aware of that. And that is all I have.
Mr. Skinner?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment, and that's on the AAA rating from Fitch Rating Agency. For the public, we've been working for this in many years. We've got to AA+, and it's because this board and previous boards have set policies, financial policies, that show that we're a stable county, and that we follow those policies very closely, and this will mean millions of dollars saved by the county because of the interest rates get lower and lower as you get more A's in your ratings. So I just want to thank everybody that's been involved, not only the staff, but board members, previous board members, and current board members. Thank you for staying within our policies and making good policies. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Benton?
Yes. We had a resolution passed out as far as the Eastern bypass and not supporting it, as FAMPO has done the same, Caroline's done the same. I did read over it. It has to be on the agenda, but regardless, this one I'd like to, Mr. Cole, I mean, I like it, but I think we need to put a little bit more oomph into it. To be quite honest, I think we need to come out and say Spotsylvania opposes it instead of unable to support. I'd like to add a little bit more definition as far as why we don't support it. Number one, the amount of land acquisition, the quality of life, and the disruption of our citizens that it impacts.
If I may just get clarification, all right, you're opposing the bypass? Because one of the options is to add a line on the current track that would go through the city, just alongside. They may have to obtain some right-of-way in certain places if they don't have enough current right-of-way to accommodate another line, or are you just saying don't build anything?
Well, I'd love to say don't build anything, but I don't know that would pass. But as FAMPO did, we did a resolution against the Eastern bypass, I believe it was, where they were taking the properties of many of our citizens and disrupting a large portion of our area of our community down there. That's what I'd like, and I'd like to say we oppose it. Not having the information, well, that's true too, but the amount of disruptions that it would cause our citizens, the amount of land acquisition, taking of land from our citizens, and just the quality of life that would be lowered maybe for a lot of our citizens affected. Like I say, I went to the community question answer, I guess, well, more question at the Fredericksburg Christian School. I can't remember the date, but I think we had somewhere around 300 people show up in opposition to this thing. And it's supposed to be an informational session, but all it was give us your questions, we'll get to them eventually, I guess. They answered no questions, and here they are. They're supposed to make some sort of decision this fall, and they literally answered no questions. Took a lot of questions, didn't answer. And I would think if they're this far in their environmental studies and are going to be making a decision this fall, they would have some answers. You know, when I do a town hall, I at least try to have a lot of information available to folks that I can give and not just say, well, let me research or submit it and I'll get to it whenever. But I think we do need a little bit more meat in this, and I don't know the procedure, to be quite honest, to follow through with it. I'd hate to wait another month to get this done.
I could, Mr. Chairman, I think what we need to do is oppose the current alternatives, because they're right, they're not right. But I don't think we want to close out anything, just as Mr. Cole was talking about. There is a fourth rail that we could put up there, and it would not affect, stuff of that. It's all property that the CSX has. So I am opposed to all the alternatives they've given us right now, but I don't think we should shut ourselves out of it, because we do want to have a say in from here on out, too.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Spula?
Yes, I'm the one that set up that meeting, and I certainly oppose the methodology and in which they used to go about doing the little bit of information that they passed out. Their whole methodology is wrong, but I would not want to categorically oppose, because we haven't heard everything yet. And what they proposed, I'm against. I don't want railroad running through my constituents' backyards and the taking of property, but we haven't heard everything that they have to say yet. And although I'm doubtful that they're going to say anything good, I still want to hear it all before I categorically oppose something. So that's where I stand on it.
I'd like Mr. Cole to clean this up a little bit and get it to us.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion that we accept it. Or do the resolution to oppose the eastern bypass portion.
Okay. All right. What we can do is we can, rewrite it and have it on the next meeting agenda.
It just keeps on putting everything off. That's the problem. That's fine.
So we're going to bring
Chair?
it back in September.
I mean, do you feel comfortable enough looking at it right now and coming up with a different wording? We take care of it tonight?
I mean, yeah, I know the hour's late, and I hate to belabor it, but if you wanted to, we could work on something in the next, 10, 15 minutes and try to, offer some alternative language. But, I mean, that's the will of the board.
I got elected to stay a long time, but I know others have appointments and stuff in the morning, so.
Well, is there?
Do we have the FAMPO resolution?
It was sent. Right. Was the Caroline's was more direct, wasn't it? We can just hold off till next.
Okay.
Other than that, that's it. Just I would like to say publicly thank you to Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, the Spotsylvania Fire and Rescue. I know I'm going to forget somebody. VDOT for all the help with the damage and stuff from the storm the other week. They did a tremendous job out there.
Mr. Trappy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this evening in our consent agenda included a resolution opposing the EPA's action in aborting the process that was in place by local governments in each of the states that borders Chesapeake Bay for cleaning up the bay and taking it over themselves. Supervisor Brabo from King George had wanted to be here for our public comment period, but was in a meeting on this very issue. But I wanted to give the board I appreciate the board's support in passing the resolution. I wanted to give you an update. The Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors adopted a resolution similar to ours. Recommend that each county that adopts the resolution make VACO aware. I'll take care of that for Spotsylvania. In a meeting last week between the Local Government Advisory Committee for the Chesapeake Bay and the Region 3 EPA Administrator, the EPA Administrator agreed to consider revised language. So we're not there yet, but sometimes pressure actually works. My second item, my appointee to the Citizens Budget Review Committee had resigned in frustration over the inactivity of the committee, but they have begun meeting again, and so I would like to reappoint Sean Davis to the CBRC. Make that nomination at this time.
Okay, call the question.
Seven yes.
That's all I had.
I asked Mr. Taylor to provide me the meeting date for the next meeting so we could attend. Probably the both of us would be good to attend that meeting and give direction from the chair and the vice chair. Mr. Ross?
I'd just like to thank staff, Mary Sorrell and Bonnie Jewell. This past week, they were our lead for talking to the rating agencies, and I thought they did an outstanding job with Davenport presenting our financial strength, our policies, and they're two first-class employees for Spotsylvania County, so thank you.
Mr. Spilla?
No report.
Mr. Yakubowski?
No report.
Okay. I got a couple quick ones. When do we anticipate Station 5 and Station 11 opening? And so this all kind of ties together between Station 5, Station 11, we were promised delivery dates, which haven't occurred yet, as well as the Fire and Rescue Emergency Management Radio System, which seems to be dragging on and on. It was promised 1 July. So my question is, what is causing the delays? Is it something that the county's doing? Is it something the contractor's doing? And what are we doing to address this, and how do we resolve this issue quickly? Because these are public safety issues at this point. So if you don't have the answers right now, I would like them back this week.
Mr. McLaughlin, if I could, I will get that information to you in the morning.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, because yeah,
I will send it out as a board communication.
You know, particularly as the residents drive down Route 3 and see Station 5, it looks complete, and they're asking questions, how come we haven't moved into these stations? So I'd like to go back and find out. And if there is a delay or something's occurring in the way we conduct business, if we can address that. I mean, that's really, is it a bureaucracy, is it a paperwork thing? Is it if the county's stumbling over permits or, approvals or stuff? I mean, if we're having trouble internally, then I'm concerned about what our residents do when they go through that process. There may not be an issue. I just want to know if there is and what we're going to do to resolve it.
Yes, sir. I understand, and that's why I would appreciate getting with you in the morning.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Board. Yes, sir.
That's all I have. And motion to adjourn?
Move.
Call the question.